Well, happy hump day to you. It's George Brauchler with you on this 24th of January, 2024. I'm the guy that sits behind the microphone on the George Show with you from 6 to 10 a.m. every Monday through Friday. After that, we dump it off to a bunch of the big name people that you know, Charlie, Dennis, Seb, now Brandon, Tatum in that 4 to 7 spot. Then we come right back at 6 to 10. We have a little bit of weather to discuss. It says today 28 degrees fair, high of 50 maybe today, which sounds nice. I don't have the normal Denver 7 pictogram that the BT sets me up with because, as you know from yesterday's show, Billy has taken more time off. He says he's required to. It's use or lose time. I want to believe that. I could be convinced to believe that. I think a lot of it is Billy's just tired of coming in to do the radio. I'm kidding. He has sent me already a bunch of great texts about stuff going on. This guy clearly isn't sleeping in, which I don't get. I don't get why he won't sleep in if he's not going to be on the radio, but there it is. What can you do? Weather the rest of this week, you can't believe any of it. Says Wednesday, also 50 degrees. Thursday, 47, 47, and then Saturday, 48. That all looks pretty mild when it comes to the weather out here, especially in the latter half of January. And I can't believe we're in the latter half of January, but it was really nice out there yesterday. If we had a chance to do the radio outside, I'd say we should do the radio outside. Really, nothing exciting is going on anywhere on the planet. I'm kidding. There was something big that happened last night. We'll end up talking about that. But as you know, I'm a history guy. And of course, so are some of you. So I get some texts from folks who are tuning me into some things that are taking place. I like to do it earlier in the show. On this day in 41 CE. Now, folks, do you remember when we used to have BC and AD, and one of the C's was Christ, and Anno Domini was the AD? Do you guys remember that? That was back when we had the ability to acknowledge the existence not only of Christianity, but of the God that they prayed to. That's all gone now. So now this particular thing that I found says that in 41 CE, it turns out the CE means common era, or Christ exempt. I'm not sure which. I don't understand the C and the E, but it's 41. A guy named Caligula. If you've never seen the movie, don't go watch it. Just trust me. Don't go watch the movie. But the Roman Emperor Caligula murdered by the Praetorian Guard, and then his uncle took over. Now, there is a fantastic PBS series. It's an old one. I got to believe it's 70s, maybe early 80s, called I, Claudius. If you have not had a chance to check that thing out, it's really pretty good. And it's supposed to be the history of the early Roman Empire as narrated by Claudius. And that was a fantastic show. In that case, who was the dude that played him in that? He still shows up in movies all the time. Derek Jacobi. That's his name. Derek Jacobi, who still shows up in just about anything Shakespeare. If you'll remember 1989's fantastic adaptation of Hamlet V with Kenneth Branagh, the guy that's the narrator that reads the opening part of the movie and the play, that's Derek Jacobi as well. So that took place in 41 AD. Something else. On this day in 1848, that's a long time ago. I haven't really done all the math yet, but it feels like we're coming up on, 170-something years. Guy named James Wilson Marshall, Jimmy Wilson Marshall, was in California. He's in the American River in California, and he discovers a gold nugget near a sawmill he was building for a dude named John Sutter. That is Sutter's Mill that ultimately leads to the California gold rush and all the mess that has stemmed from it since. Also, 1940, The Grapes of Wrath, the movie version of that thing with Henry Fonda, is released. This one hits a little closer to home. 1908, guy named Robert Baden-Powell, Lieutenant General. He published a book called Scouting for Boys. That was a manual for self-instruction in outdoor skills and self-improvement. It becomes the inspiration for the Scout movement. And if you're keeping tally at home, underneath the roof here, we have 2 Eagle Scouts, including Amanda, who was part of that very first class of women that were allowed to compete for an Eagle Scout designation. And she did, of course, because she's a self-starter and got it all done. Then Trey, particularly proud of Trey. And then last night, I should have told Jeff this. Last night, Jeff's the SPL. He's the senior patrol leader for Troop 373 at the moment. And they had a big meeting yesterday. And he is a star, and so is Graham. So there's a little bit of neck and neck going on there as Graham insists that he's going to beat his older brother into life. That's the next level of scouting. And then Eagle Scout. And, of course, Jeff, feeling the pressure, swears that he'll get it done. But that was 1908. 1993, Thurgood Marshall, first African-American to serve on the Supreme Court, died at age 84, if you can believe that. Now, wait a minute. If I'm doing the math here, and he died in 1993, he had been on the bench. He got first appointed to the bench, 26 years before. He would have been 58 when he was appointed. Yeah, I'm not going to make it. I don't think I'm going to make it. 2003, Tom Ridge sworn in as the first agency secretary for U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Winston Churchill passed away in 1965 on this day at age 90. Hard to imagine what Western civilization would look like today without a handful of men and women, but a handful of men at the time that made all those decisions that resulted in the defeat of Hitler. It's just hard to imagine where we'd be if there wasn't a Winston Churchill or a Dwight David Eisenhower. It's just fascinating stuff. Mars landing, mid-2003, Opportunity landed on the robotic rover Opportunity landed on Mars just about a year later on this day in 2004. Neil Diamond, born in 1941. And in 1989, back when we still did things like this, a guy named Ted Bundy, who was good for a minimum of 30 women that he murdered, was executed at age 42. And we had a little brush with Ted Bundy out here on the Western Slope. He escaped from custody at one point there. But we don't do that anymore. If we had caught Ted Bundy today, you and I would have paid for his ongoing existence as long as he wanted to continue to draw breath. That is this day in history. I'm trying to think if there's anything else out here. No. Oh, 2011. Second studio album by someone named Adele was released. That was huge. It ended up becoming the Billboard Album of the Year, Grammy Award for Album of the Year. That thing was freaking huge. And then in 2018, a guy named Larry Nassar, who was a doctor for the U.S. Olympic team, was found guilty of, wait for this number, molesting over 150 girls. And he was sentenced to up to 175 years in prison. I don't understand the up to part, but if you're doing the math there, that's a little more than a year per victim. It feels like we ought to have something else in the toolbox for that one. Like it's 175 years, but we take your junk or something. You know what I mean? Is that too harsh to simply say, I think we got to do something a little bit more than just lock you up with every other drug dealer because you've done a little something different there. We have behind the glass today, Kelly Michaels.
Good
Kelly.
morning. Good morning.
Hello, Kelly. Normally not the guy that has to drag himself in here at the crack of dawn for this. Kelly, there was something big that happened in sports for Colorado yesterday, and it wasn't about a team in existence right now or a player that's even playing right now. Do you remember what that is?
Refresh my memory.
There was a guy played for the Rockies, a team that really has not done a hell of a lot since its big explosion in 2007 when it ended up winning the NLCS against our Diamondback or the other team's Arizona Diamondbacks, and then went on to get swept by the Boston Red Sox. But for a time we dreamed big. We thought, man, this is it. We're going to have a World Series. Well, the guy firmly at first base there was a guy named Todd Helton. And yesterday, some big news for Todd. Did you find some sound on that, my man?
Todd Helton rips one. Todd Helton deep and gone for his first big league home run. Here comes Colorado, and what a moment for Todd Helton.
Now Helton trying to get another run in. A walk, a steal, a pass ball, and a sacrifice fly, and then a double and another double. There's a drive. Deep right. It's going. It ain't coming back. Number 7 for Helton. It's a 4-run third. The Rockies lead it 4-1.
Todd Helton is growing up in the major leagues. He had wrapped that previous pitch foul down the right field line ahead.
That sounds like that's it. That's Todd Helton. A couple clips from his career yesterday. He was voted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. Huge career accomplishment for this guy. Some folks out there listening will know this, that back when he was in college, Todd Helton was also in his junior year. He became, through an injury, the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Volunteers, for the Vols. But then he suffered an injury himself. And the backup to Todd Helton was a guy named Peyton Manning. And Peyton Manning took over the starting job and never let it go. Of course, he'd go on to lead the Colts to a Super Bowl victory. And then after the Colts threw him away because of a neck injury, he came over to us in 2013, took us to 2 Super Bowls, and we won that one in 2015, Super Bowl 50. God, we miss that guy, don't we? I mean, I love watching the Manning cast, but Todd Helton, that's huge. He is only the second Rocky to make it into the Hall of Fame, which seems incredible. But that's where we're at. Larry Walker, the other one. If you have not yet had an opportunity to go out to Cooperstown, man, you got to do that thing. If you're a baseball fan. If you're not a baseball fan, you're going to find Cooperstown to just be some beautiful place you can hang out and get a little paddle boat and go on the lake and all that stuff. That's all great. But if you're a baseball fan, it's like Mecca. You know, the kids have been. I took Graham there for the big baseball tournament that he had to play in a couple summers ago. Graham got a couple home runs, and it's really cool the way they have it set up. They have all these really nicely manicured setup fields that have short fences, about 200 feet. Well, you know, for the kids that are 11 and 12 and stuff like that, that's fantastic. But Todd Helton's going to go in there. He's going to have himself enshrined in this thing for as long as people care about baseball and maintain that thing. One quick thing, though. If you get there, if you've been there, you probably noticed the same thing I did. The building itself, you're expecting a cathedral, right? Like you're expecting some. It's not. It's kind of modest, at least in terms of the outside of it. You could drive by it in a millisecond, blink and miss it, and end up surrounded by shops that sell a bunch of baseball memorabilia. But if you do get yourself over there and you go in, man, you just remember so much stuff from being a kid. If you grew up with baseball, you just remember so many things just from history, from things that you watched, maybe with your dad. I remember growing up a Yankees fan here in Denver before we had a Major League Baseball team. And by Major League, I mean, yes, we had the old Colorado Rocky. I mean, not the Colorado Rockies hockey team. We had that. We had the old Denver Bears and then the Denver Zephyrs. And then we ended up with the Colorado Rockies. But I remember watching the Yankees games there, specifically the 77 and 78 World Series against the Dodgers, Reggie Jackson, Mr. October, and all that. Well, they have all that stuff there. And if you're a Cardinals fan or a Cubs fan or a fill-in-the-blank fan, they have the memorabilia from the greatest moments of the sport for your team. And it's a cool thing. And now Todd Helton ends up going there. If I knew Todd, I would have said, let's get Todd on the radio, but I didn't think to ask Kelly that. Kelly, do you know Todd Helton? Is there any way we get him on today to talk about the joy of...
I do not.
Now, we're not a sports show, and that probably means that he doesn't know who the hell we are either, but it seems like we should be able to just pick him up and call him because now he's in the Hall of Fame and he's a Colorado Rocky and all that. I mean, shouldn't that be how it works?
He's got nothing but time on his hands.
I think so. I think so. When you've played baseball for 17 years, for the same team, by the way, folks, who does that? You know who can't say that? Shohei Ohtani. He can't say that. Of course, he's got $1 trillion, and maybe that makes up for it. But Todd Helton played with the same team his whole career. You love that. That's very Derek Jeter. You know what I mean? I love that. You can't say that about even Wade Boggs or Roger Clemens or some of the other greats. Everybody bounces around. Tony Gwynn, you can, and that's my little tip of the hat to our friend Stephen Tubbs. But that's where we're at today. Some other stuff that's going on in the news. There was, and I want to talk to folks about this right here. There was a big vote in New Hampshire yesterday. It was called the New Hampshire primary, first primary of the presidential election season in America. I do want to talk about that, but there's something else that got brought to my attention. I saw it on social media. Somebody had pinged me with this thing and said, hey man, you got to check this out. And it's going to blow your mind. And I don't know how to set this thing up other than to play the clip with just very little setup. But there's a guy named Jeff DeWit. Jeff is the David Williams of the Arizona GOP. He is the chair of the GOP. And it looks like he met with Kari Lake at some point. And I'm almost certain it's Kari. I said it Kari before and somebody corrected me. I think it's Kari Lake. He meets with her. If you guys haven't listened to this clip, we've got some sound of this. He meets with her and he ends up saying some things that sound an awful lot like he's trying to buy her out of running for the United States Senate. And so she records this thing. And Kelly, you've cut it up into a couple bits of sound. Can you play that for us? At least one of the first clips. It gets right off to the jump from social media.
And just let me add that we have enhanced the sound on this.
We've enhanced the sound, yeah.
So it's going to sound better than anywhere you've heard it on the internet.
Nice.
If you've already heard it. Here we go.
Is there a number at which
I can be bought? That's what it's about.
you could take a pause for a couple of years?
No.
Like a record.
No. 10 million, 20 million, 30, no. A billion, no. This is not about money. This is about our country.
Okay.
I think it's disturbing that they would that anybody would think this is.
I'm not, to be fair, even me, I'll say this. I want a fresh face right now for the reason that I've never seen anyone. I can't think of a single person in a federal race who lost ranting the law. I can't think of it. You can think of it.
I'm not going to let these people who hate our country tell me not to run. You should call them and tell them to get behind me. So what's going on? I'm assuming this is our friend.
This is back east. There are very powerful people that want to keep you out.
I don't know when they do.
But they're willing to put their money where their mouth is in a big way. So, conversation never aired.
That is, that's Kari Lake. I mean, can you believe what you're hearing here? Jeff DeWitt, the state party chair for the Arizona GOP, seemingly having a conversation with Kari Lake where he suggests that there are powers that be back on the East Coast, back in the East, I presume in the DC area, and they're prepared to provide her with someone. Now, there's more to this clip. We'll play more to this clip. Not right this
is
second.
crazy.
Oh,
This is
right
crazy, though. They should want me. I'm a great candidate. People love me. These people are corrupt.
Well, maybe you're right.
They are right. They are corrupt.
This is a rap. Don't go. Do me a favor though. I'll get myself in trouble. And this, if you say no, which is fine, it's your choice. Tell me more.
They're gonna try to have me murdered.
He's world land. If that stuff that came out last week is right about the cartel stuff, and they said the cartel's operating in 50 states right now, like all 50. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So
what's going on? Who is it? What?
Forget the who's to say the what. let's just say there are people calling around saying, no, they can't repeat it. Never repeat it. We say, no, don't, because I got offered to buy out. Yeah, don't use it. Because then we lose our ability to get things done.
Here's my problem. Rather than just say, let's work with her. She's a great, because they don't own me. And it pisses me off.
Yeah, I said notice about ownership.
It's about control.
I know it's about control. It's about being on the team. I guess that's
They want to be on the team.
they want you to go there.
But if they're pushing a globalist agenda, I can't do that. So what do they want? What do they want me to do?
You only just say our twos. But let me tell you what I can offer you. But I said, you can do whatever she wants. Okay, so the ask of me was, it's kind of fun. So the ask I got today from back east was, is there any companies out there or something that could just put her on the payroll and keep her out? I said, well, what do you want to do? Whatever we need.
Yeah, that is Kari Lake and the state party chair, Jeff DeWit, having a conversation that clearly indicates there are powers that be back in D.C. trying to keep Kari Lake out of the race. Now, keep in mind that this particular clip was recorded a long time ago. And by a long time ago, I mean last year, 10 months ago last year. March of 2023 is when this conversation was had, which may have been before Kari got into the race. I can't remember. But this, first off, brilliant on behalf of Kari Lake to record this. Two, hey, everybody, heads up, Kari Lake records her private conversations with people. So, I mean, I don't know if that's an everyday thing. You know, she was a reporter for a long time, but she did it here. I'm sure Jeff and she probably don't talk much other than how's the weather. Things are good. You know, nice to see you above ground.
Is it legal? Is it legal in Arizona to record conversations?
You know what? I'm gonna take that that question and use something called the Googles to try to find that. But I would guess like Colorado. In Colorado, we're a one-party consent state, so you can record someone, and it looks like now here I'm looking at this, Arizona also has a one-party consent law, so you can record a private conversation. The conversations you can't record are the ones where you're not a party to it, so you can't surreptitiously record a conversation where people don't know that you're there. But if you're there, even if you're not a participant, you could turn on your little phone and record the whole conversation, and it would be completely fine. Some states, and it's not a huge number, I want to say there's 11 states that are two-party consent states that require that other person not only to know that you're recording, but agree to it to keep it going. We just don't do that in Colorado. And my guess is most of the West, I think California might be a two-party consent state. But other than that, most of the West, I think, is one-party consent. So she could do this. Little unsettling, but I guess this is the modern era, right? Like if you're going to run for office, there are things called trackers, and trackers are usually young people paid to just follow a candidate around, filming and recording everything that they can possibly record or film, with the idea that at some point you're going to let your guard down, you're going to say something ridiculous, and then you're going to end up on some social media or maybe some legacy news type thing. Well, that's what happened here. Kari Lake's a genius when it comes to this media stuff. The question is, does this for you, if you're not a person who believes in the swamp and the deep state and all that stuff, does this give you some pause? I mean, it gives me a little pause. Like, do I think things like this happen? I guess I'm disappointed they didn't happen to me. I would have loved to have had the opportunity to have a conversation about, so what exactly are we talking about? You know, I mean, is there anything they can do to put me in a better climate? You know, I mean, there is a law, by the way, in Colorado where you cannot try to bribe someone out of running for office. That is a legit crime, and I'd have to go look that up. I don't know if Arizona has the same thing, but if they do, this Jeff DeWit guy could be in trouble. I mean, it's a heck of a thing to consider. Let's see right here. Here's some texts. That was weird. I'm not sure what that was. Charlie, it's Susan Bruner Pratt. Are you on the air now? I don't know who Charlie is. I need to contact Deborah Flora. Is there? Charlie's not here right now. I don't know, maybe in a couple of weeks. I'm a third generation of Denver, but I certainly didn't vote for the legalization of weed and for this flagrant madness. Oh, look at all this stuff. Wow. Lots of stuff going on here on the text already. For Kari Lake, does this convince you that there is a deep state out there that is trying to undermine conservatives? I'm a little torn on this. One, do I think things like this happen? I guess I thought they were things that happened back in like the 70s and 60s and 50s and before that. I didn't think they happened today. This guy, this Jeff DeWit guy, is horrible at what he's doing. There's got to be a different way to have this conversation. But it sounds like this guy watched a movie on how to suggest a bribe and then tried to fill that role. I don't know. I don't know what else to do. Oh, Corey, our friend Corey, who's an attorney, has texted in to let me know and remind me that in the state of Colorado, attorneys cannot record anyone surreptitiously without their consent. I think that's true. I wonder if it applies. Like if I sit down and someone tried to bribe me out of running for office, God knows, I don't know why they would want to do that. And I recorded it. Would I be in trouble? Would my law license be in trouble for that? It feels like that, especially because it's a crime. Yeah, that's a great question, Corey. That's a great question. Here's another one. Oh boy, oh my, I can't see how the GOP wins when the back east money owns state party chairs in some states. I'm not shocked with all that has happened here in Colorado. That's our friend Scott, brother from another mother. I'm concerned about the idea that there is a group of people out there trying to keep folks from running. My guess is their interests are, we think we can win better with someone else. And that might be true. I looked at the polls. Kari Lake is neck and neck with the other guy that's running, the presumptive guy from the other party, I think. But I think they're looking for a solid win. And are these the same people that are backing Nikki Haley? Is this the same group of Republicans, deep-pocketed Republicans who are out there trying to make sure that if you are perceived as a MAGA extremist, that you don't make the decision to run because we'd like to win? I don't know. What do you think of all this stuff? 303-696-1971. Here's another text. GOP is just the other wing of the same bird. Disgusting. I don't know what you mean by that. I have heard uniparty. I don't believe that. You can't possibly believe that on things like abortion. The Republican Party, while there are some members who are clearly more permissive on the idea of abortion up through the first trimester and all that stuff, you cannot say that our positions are close to the same as a Democrat Party who just had a governor sign a proclamation championing abortion. And at the same time, there's a group out there launching a ballot initiative to enshrine abortion up until high school graduation for the fetus/student into our state constitution. We're just not the same party. I don't agree with that. Here's one: election fraud. J. Alex Halderman accessed Dominion voting machines and changed the outcome. This occurred in day 4 of the trial currently going on in Georgia. Billy, check it out. Jay Halderman is a University of Michigan computer science professor. I suppose we could look at that. Look, the last time I saw any video on YouTube about it, these dudes had one of these machines and they squirreled it away in some motel and like disassembled it to be able to get it to do what they wanted it to do. And it's like, well, okay. I mean, I can type out a bunch of letters onto an antiquated calculator and turn it upside down and it reads boobs. That doesn't mean that I've hijacked the calculator. What do you think about this? Is this an indication that the deep state is real? That there are big, deep-pocketed, moneyed folks out there who are trying to be the puppet masters that Vivek Ramaswamy, and I got to be candid with you, I'm so tired of that guy. I can't be more tired of any other politician, Chris Christie included, can't be more tired of anybody other than look at me, Vivek Ramaswamy. And his constant teasing on the social medias about we know what's going on and the plot is right in front of us and everybody can see what's going on. And the puppet master thing. I don't think Nikki Haley is being controlled by puppet masters. I think Nikki Haley wants to be president. And the MAGA path is occupied right now. In fact, the MAGA path and a couple others are occupied by the same dude. She's only got the one path. So I don't see this but this constant puppet master thing is annoying. Now, having said that, this Kari Lake thing is crazy. The state GOP chair tried to put his fingers on the scale on behalf of some deep-pocketed money people that he describes from the East Coast, so much money. And then if you listen to that second clip that Kelly played, part of it was, hey, is there some kind of a company you might want to work for where we can pay you a big fat salary? And, and if you listen to the rest of the clip, there's a lot of it. There's a bunch. I don't know if Kelly got the whole thing, but this thing goes on for 5-9 minutes, something like that. And at one point, she says, they just want me out of politics. And he said, no, they just want you to take a break for like 2 years, just 2 years, so that we can win this seat. And she says, no way. And now, of course, she's going to play this. If I'm her, I put this up in ads. I mean, if I'm her, this is me standing up for the little guy against the big, rich silk stocking dudes.
But why did it take her a year to do it, to post it, to make it public?
Because she is a genius. Because she's a genius. It is now less than 10 months before the general election. Everything else leading up to this is likely to have been consumed with the 8 billion other people running for president at the time. People were thinking about different things. But the timing of this, I don't know. I could see it being later even. But January, I don't know. Somebody slipped this thing to the Daily Mail, and they're the ones that ran with it, and it's now become this firestorm. Can this dude survive this? Can Jeff DeWit survive now that this thing is out there? But it's such a great question, Kelly. Why didn't she come forward with it right away? Maybe she was hoping they'd come with a truckload of money. Maybe she thought they would up the ante. I don't know. But I haven't seen a response from this guy yet. I'm anxious to see a response. Can you imagine a state party chairman putting his fingers on the scales of a race during a primary? Oh, wait. That hits a little close to home, doesn't it? It feels like that's part of the direction that we're going, maybe here in the state of Colorado, as we have a friend of the show, Dave Williams, who's the state party chair, who's also running for Doug Lamborn's open seat in CD5. Now, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. But this idea that a state party chair is going to try to marionette his way to setting up the stage for the outcome of his choice, it's fascinating to me. 303-696-1971 is the number. Let's do this. Let's cut away for a break. We'll come back. We'll get some other things squared away. We'll continue to talk about this and other topics. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
This is about defeating Trump. And I think that's a bad, bad thing for our country. DeSantis is not America first. This is about the final death blow to Trump. And I don't think that's good for our country.
And you know, I love.
It's not good for our country, Jeff.
It's not. But at the same time, I'm not even sure Trump. I don't know. I think what it really comes down to for a lot of people, not really about like control or agenda. It's just about the ability to raise money to win. You know, if you really want to know all of those politics, and even on their end, what makes that the most fun?
I know all these consultants don't want their payday to. And I don't want to make a deal with these kind of people. This is a hill worth dying on. I'm not, if they're going to steal the election to make me and our movement go away, I'm not letting him do that. I owe it to the people of Arizona to carry their torch and their voice.
You don't go away. But
this is the battles right now, Jeff.
You fill your coffers.
No, the battle is right now. The battle is right now. And we don't have time to pause on this battlefield.
You're not. What you can't scratch their back. It's not afraid.
Yeah.
You don't have anything to offer them. And they're sitting around people that have stuff to offer them. You know what I mean? It's just it's a backstretch of the float. That's all DC is. It's a big backstretch on it. You're in no position to scratch anybody's back, and you already made it known that if you get there, you're not going to scratch anybody's back. I don't scratch people's back. You know, I've been on the outs a lot of people for a long time, and I don't scratch flags.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where are we in 2 years if they steal the election again?
Listen to what you're saying. Why don't we do something about it so that we the people can pick our?
What can we do?
I'm not willing to accept that. Then I'm going to be the biggest pain in these people. Go back and tell them that I'm running, and I'm going to be the biggest pain in their.
I mean, I'm willing to tell them that,
and they're going to have to kill me.
That was Kari Lake and Jeff DeWit. He's the state party chair in Arizona. That's the last of a long series of clips. We had 3 clips that we played over the course of this last hour, highlighting what appears to be an attempt to buy Kari Lake out of the U.S. Senate race in Arizona. A couple things to know about that the social media folks don't seem to want to highlight that I think matters, and it's a question that Kelly asked in the last segment. This thing took place back in March of 2023. Kari Lake clearly had it. It sounds like it's being recorded closer to her. Kelly had to clean up the sound, but her sound was much clearer. It also sounds like she's eating chips or something. I don't know, nuts or something in there. But she finally releases this thing to the Daily Mail, and it gets big. It gets huge. And now the question is, what's next? So Kari Lake has come out recently, like within the last day or two, and said this guy has to resign. Says you have to resign, and here's the quote: he's got to resign. We can't have somebody who is corrupt and compromised running the Republican Party. This is what she told an NBC reporter at President Trump's New Hampshire primary victory party. Why she was in New Hampshire, I don't know. Maybe she's auditioning for VP or something. I don't know. But here's the bigger question. If that's true, if she really believes this dude is corrupt and he shouldn't be running the party, why, as Kelly Michaels asked, did she sit on this for 10 months? Now it seems less like I'm this champion for the little guy standing up to the overlords out there in the swamp than it is, this feels like a political opportunity for me, and genius on her part. That's so crazy. The DeWit guy hasn't responded. Kari Lake hasn't responded to any other questions. Even the state GOP hasn't responded for requests for comment. But this thing is real. What does it make you think? Does this happen everywhere? I mean, I've never been in this position. And I don't, I'll give you an example. And in no way am I suggesting that he would be part of this or capable of this. But, there was a time back in the day, 2017-ish, where some young prosecutor out there got it in his head that he could run and win in the open governor seat and win the Republican nomination. And just so that we're all clear, based on things I couldn't have known in advance, but the way it played out at the state assembly, I think I would have won the Republican nomination, but I think I would have lost the election to Jared Polis. Nobody was going to beat Jared Polis that year. And frankly, nobody was going to beat Jared Polis in 2020. And it's not the fault of the Republican Party. It's just the demographics of the state right now, the way it's set up. And in part, maybe it has something to do with the fact that we carpet bomb the state with ballots. And we're encouraging people to vote who really don't know what's going on, don't care what's going on, but some nice people came to the door and said, hey, can you get the blue envelope and let's talk through how you can make a positive difference for Colorado? I don't know how much that was it, but nonetheless, nobody ever approached me and said, you know, people back east really would love to see Walker Stapleton as the governor, you know, or people really want to see Greg Lopez as, and that one seems a little more far-fetched because Walker was the guy that had all the Bush connections, but that never happened. That was never even intimated at. There's never been a suggestion of that. I did hear of a story once, though, on the other side of the aisle. I heard of a story where somebody who's in a statewide office right now talked to somebody on our side of the aisle about not running against him for a specific office. We're never going to get into the names here. And said, hey, man, there's a bunch of great jobs out there. I know of one that's open at such and such a place, and it pays this big dollar amount. That's a lot more vague and nuanced than Jeff DeWit from Arizona. But dang, but that's the closest I've ever heard. That's the closest I've ever heard. Does this continue to go on? And does this change your opinion of Kari Lake? Does this make you think I am more supportive of her now than I was before because of her willingness to stand up to the swamp? Or are you thinking like, and it was such a good question that Kelly asked, wait, if this is such a big deal, why keep this in your pocket for 10 months? Why do that? 303-696-1970. We're going to cut away for another break. We'll come back. We'll have a couple minutes left. I'll get to the text. There's a bunch of texts now in here too. Keep them coming. What do you think of Kari Lake? Does this go on all the time in the Republican Party? Is this what makes Trump so appealing? Because there are these money, deep-pocketed, mysterious deep staters who are trying to manipulate who even runs for office. 303-696-1971. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Not a lot of time left to get through all the texts. I'll try to get some of them here. Here it is. I hope you give. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, here it is. Yes, I can believe they are bribing Kari not to run. The deep state and cabal exist. One of the hundreds of reasons the border needs to be closed because the cartels are in every state, as Jeff confirmed in the conversation. It's also been confirmed Colorado has at least 3 cartels here. We need more genuine politicians like Kari Lake who will actually put the people of this country first. Here's another. I think a lot of politicians have stashes of attacks on various opponents. It's a good strategy. Don't you agree? I think there is some of that, but who's the opponent here, Texter? Who is that? I mean, I think Oppo research is legit. It happens all the time. In some ways, it's why you have more confidence in a candidate who has run and been elected before, because you presume that they've been through that vetting process more than once. And that's not always accurate, as you know, from Mike Lynch, who we just had on yesterday. We'll talk about that a little bit too. There's an update on that from some stuff that happened since we were on the radio. How much time, Kel? 30 seconds. Look, I can't get through all the text, but let me do this. I want to reset here. We're going to talk about what happened in New Hampshire. I'm going to update you on the Mike Lynch stuff that took place yesterday, and I want to get your feedback on this as to what now. What do we expect now? And I'll tell you my position as well. You stick around. It's George Brauchler on the George Show, 710 KNUS. Welcome to Hour 2 of 4 on The George Show right here on 710 KNUS. Updating you on some stuff that occurred yesterday after the show. If you remember, we had Representative Mike Lynch, the minority leader for the House Republicans in the General Assembly on yesterday. Couple things to update about that. And I can't imagine how much it sucks to be in the position that Mike is in. And that is one, trying to navigate a General Assembly where you are an extreme minority and by every definition, a super minority in the House. And at the same time, trying to get launched a candidacy for the 4th Congressional District, which is huge, 3 borders of the state of Colorado in that one, I think. And then having to deal with this. And that is the revelation of the DUI that took place back in September of 2022. And then having to answer these questions and have the media do all. And the guy has gone out there and answered questions, and not just from me or Dan Kaplis, but also Marshall Zeliger. So yesterday, you can imagine that the left-wing media, the mainstream media folks, not excited about the idea that Mike Lynch wasn't pilloried enough. So Kyle Clark, who you may have heard of, he's on one of the big stations. He took to Twitter, and the dude has like 180,000 followers, which is just insane, that number of followers, but he does. And he tweets out this, a series of quotes from our show. And the quotes, of course, are very cherry picked for the narrative that he'd like to have. And some of the narrative is about Mike Lynch, and some of the narrative, I think to some extent, is intending to dig at me. So here's the one that he puts up that's a shot at me. He says, George Brauchler, that's me, a former prosecutor, argued that drunk driving was less disqualifying for a politician than shoplifting because drunk driving doesn't necessarily involve, quote, bad motive or ill will. Note the glaring socioeconomic implication as well, he says. He puts that in there. Note the glaring socioeconomic implication as well. He also quotes, few people intend to drive drunk. You don't accidentally steal. You don't steal because you're drunk. And please stop the garbage narrative. I'm stealing to feed my kids, which is a garbage narrative. I've only done this. I get it. Kyle Clark is super smart and I'm not. I've only been in the criminal justice game for 29 years. I've never had a single case of theft where it was someone stealing for need. Not a single time. Not a single time was someone stealing for their family. Now, maybe I just got unlucky and they're out there around me everywhere, but I didn't see it. Nonetheless, they put that out there. What he doesn't do is put in there the quotes that were in advance of any of that stuff or surrounding it, that I wasn't talking about the nature of the crime as to who gets more harmed or whatever, but from the standpoint of what is a character flaw that would be disqualifying. And is it the person that drives drunk, which I still argue people get drunk. They don't intend to go out and hurt anyone. They don't intend to go out there and put people at risk, but they're dumber because they're drunk. In no way does that get them off the hook. I have sent plenty of people to jail and even prison for repeated drunk driving. Drunk driving kills people every year. It maims many more. It changes lives. There's no doubt about it. But from the standpoint of a DUI where no one was hurt, when you look at the thought process that goes into it, do you treat that differently than somebody who steals, who looks around, sees nobody watching, and grabs something for their own greed? I mean, maybe there's no distinction, but that was the topic yesterday that I tried to advance. Not good enough for Kyle. So Kyle puts that out there. He also puts in there this quote, it takes guts to finally own up to something and finally come forward. And then he parenthetically says, no, Lynch did not come forward. He asked the state trooper to keep his drunk driving and weapons arrest quiet. That's not what I was talking about when I said come forward. I said cat's out of the bag. Dude comes to the radio, my show, Caplis's show, even Marshall, Kyle's sidekick, even he interviewed with him. That takes guts because dude didn't have to do it. We have seen that time and again. We have seen a ton of people never give interviews on information. That, hey, here's an example. How about Jared Polis? Not because he committed a crime. I'm not likening these two things. I'm saying there are a lot of politicians that refuse to talk about things that could look bad for them. Do you remember when Kim Kardashian called up Polis and said, hey, there's a guy who killed a bunch of people with a runaway semi and set a bunch of other people on fire, and he got this sentence for the crimes that he refused to take a deal for because he thought he would beat it at trial and didn't. Can you pretty please figure out a way to give him a much smaller sentence? And of course, Polis said he refused to answer questions, refused to be interviewed on the Kim Kardashian thing, hiding behind, well, we just don't talk about the people that consult with the guy. So there are politicians out there who don't do what Mike Lynch did. That's part of this update. The other thing that came out was he said there that people don't have the intent and no one does that. Bunch of people chimed in with, but drunk driving kills and shoplifting doesn't. 100% agree. 100% agree with that. But this is nuts. So he doesn't put in there the quote beforehand, which is where I said drunk driving is reckless, incredibly dangerous. And I said it's like somebody going into their front yard and shooting a gun up in the air. They don't know where the bullet's going to go, but man, it could kill someone. No, none of that makes the tweets. But again, this has got to be the legacy media thing right here. Is it's not enough that Mike Lynch be pilloried based on these interviews. He's not pilloried enough. And anyone that's conservative that interviews him, well, they didn't do a good enough job. By the way, they had a shot at interviewing him. Marshall did. I don't know why they were unhappy with their own interview, but there it is. So that goes on social media, the X, the Twitter. I was just taking a look at a message that came through. But then yesterday, after we talk with Mike Lynch, there is another attempted vote of no confidence in the state legislature, in the House, but it fails. And it fails for some reasons I can't I can't really nail down everything, but there's a great piece in the Denver Gazette by Marianne Goodland. She does a really great job that talks about how this hastily called vote of no confidence was supposed to be scheduled Tuesday morning, but they couldn't get a quorum. And another Republican, Mary Bradfield, said, hey, the dude, Scott Bottoms, Representative Scott Bottoms, a conservative guy in the Republican Party, didn't have the right to set a location or time for a meeting. So she just got up and left the room out of this meeting. So they didn't have a quorum, and because they didn't have a quorum, they couldn't hold a vote. And Mike Lynch lives on another day. Now, based on our interview yesterday, I thought that maybe Mike was setting up for some sort of an announcement, like maybe he was stepping back from the leadership role, which, by the way, some folks had called for when he decided to run for office. This is the most interesting part of this weirdness, this chaos, if you will, that took place yesterday in the House. Dave Williams showed up. There's pictures of Dave leaning in, talking to the people that I'm just mentioning here on the air. What business is it of the state party chair? What goes on here in this internal caucus decision-making? Now, I know Dave used to be part of that caucus, but used to be are the operative words, past tense. What possible input could he have of any note there? Now, the missing legislator that people speculate, and I think this is true, likely would have tipped the vote 10-9 as a no confidence vote, would have been Stephanie Luck. Stephanie Luck is out on, I think, maternity leave, just had a baby this past weekend. And of course, she and Dave were colleagues, and she was part of the D-Will fan club. So I don't know if he was carrying information to them about her. I presume she still has an operable phone. I don't know why the state party chair would get involved in this kind of internal legislative discussion or even vote about no confidence for the minority leader. I don't know the answer. Hopefully we'll get Dave on the radio at some point here and we'll have a conversation with him about it. But it's weird, especially after we talked about Jeff DeWit in Arizona on a much different level and something that is far more nefarious, trying to carry the water for those who want to tip the scales in favor of some other candidate other than Kari Lake when she ran. One sec. So that was weird too, but Lynch survives this thing. So one thing leads to another. Richard Holtorf announces that there's going to be a caucus meeting that's going to take place 8 a.m. tomorrow while we're on the radio. And that caucus meeting will ostensibly be for the vote to determine whether or not there's no confidence. Here's what's crazy about the timing and the people involved in that. Richard Holtorf is also running to be the Republican nominee for the 4th Congressional District at the same time Mike Lynch is. Both of them are scheduled to be at Fort Lupton tomorrow night after all this happens for a Women of Weld hosted candidate forum with 11, I think there's 11 now, candidates. This thing is shaping up to be, I don't know how to describe it, but must-see TV. I think that the Women of Weld are putting a live stream link on this because the thing sold out in 10 seconds and there's going to be a ton of media there. But this thing is really shaping up to be something. All of this stemming from this DUI that happened in September of 2022. And the more I look at this, the more I think to myself, this would have been far less impactful to Mike Lynch if it had just come out right after it happened. You know what I mean? Like if it had just come out when he was in the back of that car telling the trooper, I sure hope this doesn't draw media attention. I think things would have been different. So now enter the Denver Post. And of course, Megan Schrader chimes in with the editorial board. We've lost confidence in Representative Mike Lynch too. And instantly I think to myself, what a vote of confidence for Mike Lynch. I mean, if you're a conservative or a Republican, when the Post comes out against you, you got to feel like maybe there's something to you staying on. I mean, maybe that's the thing that he leads with. Maybe he tells the other 10 members who are considering voting no confidence to say, hey, listen, you're voting with the Denver Post. How do you feel about that? Well, here's one of the sentences from that editorial. Lynch displayed a lapse in judgment and a lack of integrity when he drove drunk in 2022 and then failed to disclose his arrest and pending criminal charges to the public or even to his caucus as they considered him for the role of Republican leader in the state House. He was elected to be the Republican leader 2 weeks after it happened. The failure to disclose piece is interesting because it suggests a duty, an obligation to. And while I don't think there's anything legal that required him to do it, I do think there's something to be said for the idea that if you're about to ask a bunch of people to put you in this prominent position in which your credibility matters. 1 second. Hey, do great things today, buddy. I'll see you this afternoon. Love you. If you're going to ask them to put you in this position of authority and influence, don't you feel like you have to tell them these things? I don't know. Here's the other deal, too, is I know that this is a huge distraction for the House itself. Like, they must be doing other good work, but this thing has been the thing that's dominant in the headlines. I don't know if Mike survives this from the standpoint of being minority leader. I don't know what happens with the campaign, but I know this too about Mike Lynch. Dude served in uniform at a time when he didn't have to. We have been an all-volunteer military for a long, long time. I didn't get drafted or conscripted. I raised my hand. It's not to take away anything from anybody who was drafted. My dad was drafted. But we're in an era where it is easy to be part of the 99.9% who never put on the uniform and serve, whatever that statistic is. But this guy did and continued to serve even during a time of war. That matters, man. That matters. Now, does it absolve him of all the things he's done or will ever do? No. But I just find it fascinating that the left is so quick to want to crush a guy whose career up to this point has been one of service, has been one of sacrifice for he and his family. But because of this misjudgment, and it is clear misjudgment and criminal conduct, no doubt about it, that becomes the dominant theme of why this guy can't continue to soldier on. And maybe that ends up being true. I don't know. We've seen this in some other places too. The other things that we're never going to know are how many times politicians have committed crimes where they got a pass. You know what I mean? Like, if you're looking for 2 tiers of justice, can't really look here, right? I mean, dude got arrested. Dude got prosecuted. Dude got convicted. Dude lost his CCW, I presume. I presume the sheriff would revoke that. Any misconduct with a firearm should lead to that. And he's on probation. So if there's a second tier of justice, I don't know what it is or how it shows up here, because I don't see it. But what do I know? So I'm not really sure. This was much more of an update, but maybe there's a topic here to discuss, and that is, what should happen next? Is this all just a giant distraction? Is this a big deal? Do you think that the way it was handled, the crime itself, that Representative Lynch should continue to push on and be effective as a House minority leader, or that he should step back from this thing? There are clear divisions in the Republican Party, folks, and they are on display right here in the House, in the General Assembly. There is a clear division between the folks who I think are much more of the far right groups than the others that are in power within that party, within the caucus anyway, right now. 303-696-1971 is that number. Let me do this before we cut away for a break, and then we'll come back and look at some of the many texts that have been coming in here. And then, of course, calls. I'd love to hear the conversation. And that is to tell you about Gay Ribble at the Empower Home team of Keller Williams. You know that Gay was in studio with us last week. Could have been 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. But Gay knows more than just about anybody you're ever going to be able to call on the phone from a Google search for a Colorado realtor. Gay has been doing this for decades. Her team is invested in the idea of quality and customer service. They're not looking to just stick you in some place where they can get a piece of the commission. That's not how it works. For them, it's about finding out what you want and what you need, getting out of the house that no longer suits your life and getting you into the house that you want. And in this market, Folks, that's a hell of a challenge. Mortgage rates, the scarcity of homes, all of the other things that are going on. My God, can you imagine a 25% hit to your property taxes? That's what Coloradans are going to take. These are all things that Gay understands, and the team does too. Now, they're willing to give you a ton of free information because they know that the best client is one who's a well-informed client. So go check out what they have at Sell with Certainty Colorado, sellwithcertaintycolorado.com, or give them a call at 833-301-SOLD, 833-301-SOLD, and have that conversation. Join the, I don't know, I'm going to say jillions because that number just sounds large, but it's really kind of amorphous. The jillions who over the decades who've used Gay and her team all over the metro area and the state of Colorado. That's where they operate. They sell faster than others for more than others. They make guarantees others won't, like we'll sell your house in the timing and for the amount you want, or we'll make up the difference with cash. That's who you want as your realtor, someone you can trust. 833-301-SOLD. It's sellwithcertaintycolorado.com. When we come back, you, me, the calls, the text, George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS, talking about the goings-on, update from our interview with Representative Mike Lynch, Minority Leader for the Republicans in the General Assembly. Asked a bunch of questions there, gave you some updates on that, on also, our friend Kyle out there at one of the big stations, and folks texting in. Republicans wonder how they can't gain traction in Colorado. It's because of things like this. Party is a joke. Another text, Kyle Clark is essentially a mean girl. Unfortunately, he has political and social power in Colorado because most Colorado voters resonate with mean girls. That has Mitch McConnell written all over it. I presume that's a reference to the Kari Lake recording that we played. Here's another one. He covered this up. What else has he covered up? I don't. And someone else says you're blinded by military service. I'm not blinded by military service, but I don't treat it like it's some other occupation you decide to do. I mean, I value my dentist. I value my primary care physician, all of those things. I don't think it's the same thing as military service. I think there's a million things you can do that are far less risky and capable of sacrifice than sticking up your hand and saying, I'm willing to sacrifice everything I have and everything I'm ever going to have if my country, through these elected leaders, sends me abroad, even if I don't agree, to fight for some cause on behalf of the country. Name the other job that's like that that's out there. I don't know it. So I'm not blinded by it, but I don't give it lip service and treat it like it's some other thing. Like, oh, I worked for the Postal Service. Oh, really? Man, I bet those dogs can be scary. I mean, it's not the same thing. 303-696-1971. Brian from Arvada, you're on 710. Brian, what do you think of all this?
Hey, George.
Hey, sir.
It kind of shows it's a big mess, the Republican Party in Colorado and nationally. But, this Lynch, I'm all about second chances. God knows I've been given several in my life. So I don't condemn or judge anybody. So I don't think he should lose his current position. As far as his candidacy, it's sunk. I wouldn't vote for him. I don't live in the 4th District, but I wouldn't vote for him. Number one, because it happened. Number two, because he said publicly or said to the officer, I hope this doesn't get out. And then number three, he didn't disclose it. So that just all reeks of secrecy, and trying to keep it from the voters. So I wouldn't vote for someone who's trying to hide things from me.
Brian, is not telling someone something like that the same thing as actively obfuscating or hiding it? Because I could see a difference there. Is not telling them the same?
Well, I think when he told the officer, I hope this doesn't come out publicly, well, then that tells your intent right there. You don't want it to go public. So you're not going to disclose. So yeah, that's a plan. That's intent. So yeah, I wouldn't trust that guy as far now. And so he's done. He's not going to get elected. And George, like, to my larger point, you say the Republican Party's fractured. It is. Nationally, it's fractured, and it's not fractured because of the small, Freedom Caucus and the Matt Gaetzes out there. It's fractured because it's fractured because of the sellouts, the Ken Buck sellouts, the Speaker Johnson. Oh, I'm going to do this, but now let's throw all this money. Let's go $23 trillion in debt. Kevin McCarthy. Oh, I'm going to side with the Democrats. That's why it's fractured. Same thing in Colorado. It's fractured not because of a small group, the Dan Williams, the Dave Williams out there. It's not because of that. It's because of the sellouts that have got us in this situation, losing elections, telling us to vote for Joe Day, telling us to run to the center every single election for the last 10 years and lose. That's why it's fractured, George.
It's fractured, but is what you're suggesting, Brian, that the answer here is one, there is no room for compromise. If you are a Republican and you are elected, whatever your claimed principles are, they are immutable. They are unbendable, and getting 90% of it is worthless. Unless you can get 100%, you shouldn't go down that road. Is that part of it? And when you say this is what the party needs to become, is more like some of the other folks that you mentioned, you could get your way, Brian, but that's going to be a much smaller, less effective party.
Well, I think just standing for what we believe in and not budging on it. I mean, I could come up with a better theme or a better issue on abortion that doesn't alienate the pro-lifers and doesn't alienate the pro-abortion people. I could come up with something like that, and again, nobody comes up with it. I had no idea what that guy stood for. Walker Stapleton, I had no idea what principles, what he was going to stand on. I had no idea.
But stop right there. Wouldn't you have much rather had a Walker Stapleton as governor for the past 5 years than the dude we have in there now?
Oh, definitely. And that's my larger point, George. So,
I missed it.
You've got to come on board with Dave Williams. You've got to come on board with Trump, because
what does it mean coming on board? What does it mean to come on board with them, Brian?
Stop being critical of everything he does. Trump does. Stop being. It's over, George. He's going to be the nominee.
Oh, I agree with you. He's going to be the nominee, but you'd also have to agree. I don't criticize everything he's done. I think what he did with immigration was definitely the preferred route that we need to take. But if getting on board means do not criticize him for the things that he does, that ain't me, man. I'm just not going to do that. That doesn't make any sense. And I can't imagine you'd want to be that guy either. If you wanted to say, yep, he's done this wrong, he's got a whole bunch of these things, but I'm going to end up voting for him anyway, well, then we're pretty close.
Yeah. And now that he's going to be the nominee, that's what we can start talking about, how we get people to vote for him. Not, oh, he's got another indictment, or he said this, or he said that.
Like those are small things. Like, well, Trump was indicted again. Well, big deal. Move on. It matters. Those things matter.
It's not going to matter on the first Tuesday in November.
Well, you know who disagrees with you are the people that are being polled that say if this cat is convicted, if Trump gets convicted, his support plummets, and that's including Republicans.
And I don't trust any of that. So he's the nominee.
What does that mean? Well, hold on. What does that mean? I don't trust any of that.
I don't trust the polls, and I don't trust any of it.
Do you trust the polls that show Trump running away with the nomination?
Maybe. Who knows if they're manipulating that?
Then a great question is, should Haley stay in the race then? Should Haley stay in the race if the polls can't be trusted?
No. Haley's a sellout too. Haley's done. She's holding on for ego. Everyone knows it. You got Fox News, you got the RNC chair, national chair, telling her to drop out. And she's like, no, we're going to hold on to this thing. You just lost Iowa and New Hampshire, and you're going to lose your own state. So this isn't about the country for her. This is about ego. And she's going to think her political career, just like Mike Pence did 3 years ago, forever. Neither one of those, mark my words,
Brian,
neither one of those people will ever be
Trump
elected.
lost Iowa in 2016. Should he have gotten out then?
No, but all political theories you can throw out the window with Trump, because he's Teflon, and he proved everybody wrong in 2016, and he's been proving everybody wrong since. But the typical politician, like Haley, she's done. She'll never win office again, ever. She'll probably go on some show. She'll be on some show.
But you'd take her over Biden. You'd take her over Biden, though.
I'd take any Republican over Biden. And that's the motto that you should be touting for the next 10 months. For the next is anybody but Biden. And so if that's Trump, it's Trump. And so that's what we should be touting every single day. Not, Dave Williams showed up at this meeting.
Hold on. I'm glad you brought that up.
Who cares?
That doesn't intrigue you at all.
No, not at all.
Why not?
Because of course things are going to go on. This guy just got exposed. So
but why is the state party chair involved in that?
I think he's involved in a lot of things that.
I agree.
Maybe and so, but again, he's our guy. So I'm not going to be critical.
What does he's our guy mean?
He's the head of the party in this state. He got elected. So now
he got elected by a small group of Republicans. That's true.
Right.
That is true. Yeah. I don't
You're
know if
right,
that makes
he
him
did.
our guy. It does make him our party chair for sure. And that
Well,
makes him
George, then we
influential.
have to support him no matter what we feel about it. Just like you all told us to support these candidates for the last 10 years that we didn't feel totally comfortable
Last
about
10
voting
years,
for.
dude, I ain't been on
But
the
we
radio
did.
for 10 years.
I know, but people like you, George, the old guard,
Oh,
were the ones that told us, don't vote for Ron Hanks, don't vote for Tina Peters, vote for these
hold on.
people. They have a better chance.
I've never once uttered the phrase, don't vote for this Republican. I may have been critical of people, but I've never said, don't vote for this person.
You
I just
and
don't-
KBB might as well have said that, George, because you
I just
all
don't
but
use my
said, if
platform
you
that way.
vote for these people, we will not win. So I'm sorry you didn't say, don't vote for them, but saying like Dick what not to do Wadhams, don't vote for these people or we won't win. But he won't tell you
Brian,
who to vote for to win. That's the problem.
That's not
And
true.
my
I
mom
tell you,
used to tell
I
me,
told
George,
you,
if
I
you're-
told you who I supported, and I told you who I thought provided the best opportunity to win. It doesn't mean they would win, but Brian, I don't want
and
to
they got they got
relitigate
soft,
2022.
George.
But if you think Joe O'Dea's loss was somehow historic, if Hank Schwanger had been the nominee, it add 10 points to it. I mean, there's no chance that guy would have come even close to O'Dea.
Again, how do we know? We'll never
Well,
know.
we could say
took
that
your
about any
guys'
election. Man.
advice.
We
Well,
could say that
well,
about
well,
any election.
Well, we know what happened. We took your guys' advice and we got smacked. So again,
Hold on, but
so
you have
I'm
to
not-
go with what the voters say, and the Republican voters said they picked Joe O'Dea, so you have to support them, right?
after you all told us don't pick the other people.
I never said that. Never said that.
George, you might as well have. You had
And
KBB
by
on
the
here
way,
so
I
many
love that you
times.
think that I have Brian, that I have the influence to tip an election. I wish I did. I mean,
You got
I feel like
thousands of listeners, George. So
It's
yeah,
millions,
you got an
but yeah.
influence.
yeah,
You
it's
got an
billions.
influence. You got an influence. You don't have the whole. You can't tip the scale, but you got an influence. And so I'm just saying, George, we got to come together now. We got to come together. And the Dick what not to do Wadhams aren't part of the solution. And my mom used to tell me, you don't have to agree with everyone, but if you aren't going to be part of the solution, don't be part of the problem. And right now, people that are criticizing our party in the Colorado are part of the problem. And
Well, so
that
maybe we
is-
shouldn't criticize Mike Lynch. Is that what you're saying? We shouldn't highlight what he's done?
he's sunk. It's already out there. We don't have to highlight it. The left's going to do a lot of highlighting our errors. We don't need to do it to ourselves. The left is already going to do it. So don't be a Denver poster. Don't pile on. And like I said, Mike Lynch, I don't want him to lose this position. I'm about second chances. But the fact he didn't disclose, the fact he didn't want it to go public, and the fact it happened, I'll never vote for that guy again. So maybe you shouldn't drink and drive. And I'm not being a hypocrite. Have there been times? Maybe. But you know what? If you get caught, you pay the price and you do it with the voters. But we got to come together, George. I want to come together. And everyone's saying it nationally. Everybody's saying it locally. Come together, whether you really like these radical righties or not. Come together and let's try to win this thing, because the Dems are ruining the country and our state. That's the biggest issue I got going. My
Listen,
bills and my
that
kids'
last part can be
future
true.
and everything.
Yeah, that last part can be true. And still, I will never be in a position to not criticize folks, even from our own party, who do things with which I disagree. I'm not a Kool-Aid drinker. I'm not a guy who's just be like, well, he's a bastard, but he's our bastard. I mean, I'm not that
Well,
guy.
Are you going to vote for Mike Lynch? Because he's in your district, right?
Mike, he's one of 11, man. Honest to gosh, I think it's
are
still a
you
wide
gonna
open
vote
field.
for him?
I thought that, well, let's find out, man. Let's let the campaign run forward. Some of these
Are
folks
you
I
gonna
have
vote for
no
Boebert?
I said some of these folks I have no familiarity with. Like some of these
How about
people on this
Boebert?
ballot I've never heard of before this race. I got to give them a chance to win me over, man.
What about Boebert?
What about
Are you
her?
going to vote for her?
Well, how is my answer different for her than it would be for Mike Lynch? Buddy, there's 11 people in this race. I'd love to see what develops in the campaign before I commit myself. That seems
Okay.
fair, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I'm holding the same standard to Boebert. I don't know if I'd pull the lever for her after her acts in that theater, and then trying to switch districts because she's going to get crushed on the Western Slope. So I'm holding everyone's feet to the fire here, George. I probably wouldn't vote for her after that, because you got to be a higher standard than acting like a teenage schoolgirl in a theater and then lie about it and then get caught on tape and then move districts because you want me to vote for you. I don't live in the 4th district, but I wouldn't vote for her either. But you know who I'd vote for? Williams.
Really?
Because at least
He's
I know
not
where
in
the
the
guy
4th.
stands. And I thought he was going to run for that.
No, he's running the 5th. He's running the 5th. He's running down
5th.
south, man, in the Springs.
Okay. Yeah, I would vote for him. You're right. He is running for a different district because at least I know where the guy stands. I know I know where he stands, right or wrong, whether I agree or not. I know where he stands, and then it helps me make a decision on, okay, I don't agree with everything, but what do I agree the most about him?
Yeah.
And I can do that. I can discriminate that way. It doesn't feel like the old guard can. And it's time for that to move on. Lead, follow, or get out of the way. And I can tell you a lot of the old guard in Colorado needs to just get out of the way.
It sounds more, and Brian, as always, great phone call. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Brian's line is open at 303-696-1971. It sounds a lot more like, hey, just shut up, man. We have our anointed Holy One. He's going to be don't say anything. Don't say anything bad about these people. It was just very interesting to me that with some, it's, hey, I'm happy to criticize them. But when it's not, and I think this texter hit it, come together only if it's on my side. Another text, not a fan of Haley, but also not sure Haley will never win again. Look at Biden, plagiarism and more goofs and failed attempts to be more, and yet he got handpicked. Here's one. Joe O'Dea was a horrible candidate, but so were Ron Hanks and Tina Peters. I don't think Joe O'Dea was a horrible candidate. I mean, listen, look at the vote turnouts and the different races and tell me which Republican would have done better. I'm here to tell you, best guess right now, in the next several successive cycles that we have for statewide office, no Republican is going to win. And people are going to be like, I'm just telling you, based on my view of the demographics, the way people have voted, the lack of any real meaningful bench, you think anybody you can name right now that you'd support for Congress could win statewide? I don't. It's not a knock on them. It's a knock on Colorado. That's just how the votes go. Denver is what, 85% registered Democrat? What are you going to do with that? Huge population center. Boulder, huge population. We lost Fort Collins and most of Larimer County. There's a bluing going on in Highlands Ranch. I mean, let's not pretend that if we just put up the right candidate, if we could just reincarnate Ronald Reagan into somebody, Republicans would win statewide. That's bunk, man. That's not going to work. We got to figure out something else here, and it's going to take a little bit of time to do it. But none of this is helpful. 303-696-1971 is the number. It's 2024. I don't know if you've looked at your watch or had to write a check, if anyone writes checks anymore, and you do the 23 for a while, and then you're like, oh, and you finally fix it. It's a year to take back control of who you are and who you could be, especially if you're a guy. So if you're in a certain age range and you're feeling a little more lethargic, you work out, but you're not as excited you don't see the gains that you used to see. And it could be that it's a low testosterone issue. Nothing to be embarrassed about. There's no shame in it. It's just your body doing what bodies do at a certain age, but there's a fix. And the fix is offered by our friends at Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic. Easy to find their website because it's Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic with the .com at the end of it, and go check them out. Tons of helpful information. But I always say this, do research outside their website. They are showing you what they think that you want to know. Go find some other stuff. And what you're going to find out is what Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic does works, and it's worked for thousands. Take their 10-question true, false, low T quiz. They also do the PSA stuff, by the way, the PSA test. Set up your medical consult. It's $99 unless you sign up with them to do the big treatment, which I would encourage you to do. And then that becomes a free appointment. Call them up, ask as many questions as you can, get that appointment scheduled, and change your life. I told that story earlier this week or last week. Man, one of the dads from the baseball team, his a business partner of his, went and did. He said it's the best thing he's ever done in his life, he says, for himself. Check it out, 720-440-7900, 720-440-7900. Bring back the old you. Stick around. It's George Brauchler on The George Show. We'll get back to you in just a moment at 710 KNUS. Here's 710 KNUS going right to the phone lines again. Also from Arvada. It's Arvada in the 7 o'clock hour with a guy named Jose. Joe, how are you?
Good morning, George. You know, you said something there that really just stuck a knife in me as a Republican. It hurt. What it was is, you know, we have to moderate our position, or that was the essence of it.
I never said that.
Well, we were talking about how Joe O'Dea was moved to, you know, he was moved to the center, and that would get more votes.
I didn't say that either.
Well, the idea was that we have to move to the center to get more votes. That's what the idea was, or that if our position is too extreme, we're not going to get enough percentage. Well, that's the wrong kind of thinking.
But I did not say
that's
we
the
need
wrong
to run to the
kind
center.
of thinking.
I never said we need to run to the center.
Well, okay. Let's look at what happened with you said that more Republicans voted for O'Dea to get him across. No, they didn't. More independents and Democrats voted for Joe O'Dea to get him elected in the primary. It wasn't Republicans that voted for him at all that moved him. Well, here's the reason I know that. Because at the Republican convention, we elected a different candidate. That's how I know that.
To be clear, the dude you're talking about, Hank Schwanger, was in front of a group of about 4,000 people tops, and he pulled under 35%, about 35% of the vote. This idea that he had some groundswell of Republican support is garbage.
No, that is not the case at all. If a real Republican primary with Republicans voting would have elected him over your dude, a dressed up Democrat.
Man. I don't know that that's true or not, man. I don't know if that's true. Guy didn't have two pennies to rub together, couldn't raise money at all. He would have done better begging for money on the street corner.
When you say that, I look at, you know, different elections have had very little money and brought a wave of support in because of their position. Here's another thing. Ronald Reagan did not kneel to public opinion on issues where he was perceived as, quote, wrong or on the wrong side of the right way. There was all kinds of these issues, whether it was abortion, his belief in Jesus. The point is that he didn't
amnesty.
Yeah, that's right. He didn't bow to public opinion. He brought the public to his opinion. That's the way that a leader works. A leader brings the electorate to their side, not bowing the knee to public opinion. He leads the public to truth. That's what Donald Trump is doing.
Hold on. Joe,
that's
Donald Trump leads people to the truth?
That's exactly right. Every time they say,
injecting
Donald
Clorox
Trump is so
into your
wrong,
veins?
every time they say Donald Trump is so wrong, 6 months later they're saying Donald Trump was so right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've ever uttered that phrase or heard anybody else credibly do it. But Joe, I get it. I get it, man. Everything the dude does is gold. I understand, man. Have you tried to inject the Clorox into your veins to help you out with the whole virus thing?
Are you coming around to my opinion on Donald Trump winning the primary?
Oh, I'm sure he'll win the primary, but I've been saying that for a long time. Joe, I got to cut you loose. Kelly, how much time, buddy? 15 seconds is enough to tell you that in the 8 o'clock hour, we got a candidate for the school board statewide. She's going to be with us. Stick around. KBB next. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. We've got a bunch of things going on the ballot on 2024. We talked with Kent Theory yesterday about some of these ballot issues that'll fundamentally change the way we choose who represents us. We've got candidates. We're talking about that CD4 forum/debate that's going on up in Fort Lupton tomorrow, being hosted by the Women of Weld. We've got a presidential race. Some of the races, though, that are a little more obscure only because they just don't draw the same attention and the same dollars are equally important. We just don't really talk about them the same way. To do that with us right now is a newly minted candidate for one of those seats. Her name is Kristi Burton Brown. Thanks for joining us, KBB.
Of course, George. Hi.
Hey, you, for folks that don't know, of course, you were the chair of the state GOP party. You left. You have been the, I don't know what the right title is, the Commodore of Advanced Colorado or something like that, working on education issues, but you've decided to jump back into the political fray here. Is this your first political race, by the way?
So it actually is, other than inter-party races like chairman, vice chairman, those kind of things. I have never run for public office. So you can't call me a career politician. That is a fact.
Well, at this point, you are a politician once you jump in like this. Tell us what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, I decided to run for the State Board of Education in CD4. So same exact district. It's the second largest congressional district in the state, lots of rural Colorado, but also Dougco. And then I think Loveland up in northern Colorado is the largest city in the district. So pretty wide area of Colorado, but the State Board of Education obviously focuses on education. And I'm really excited about that because I think school choice deeply matters in Colorado. The left is starting to attack it, wants to get rid of charter schools. We need really strong charter school advocate and school choice advocates on the State Board of Education, and then also people who want to hold the State Department of Education accountable for real academic standards, and people who want to empower parents' voices. And those are the three things I'm really passionate about.
When you jump into this race, can you describe for us how that State Board of Education is set up? And are there at-large seats? Are they all based on congressional districts? How do we do that?
Yeah, so it's mostly based on congressional districts, but there is one at-large seat as well. They try to keep like an odd number of people on the board for voting purposes. So there's one from every congressional district, 8 of them in Colorado, and then one at-large. So right now it's a 6-3 majority for Democrats on the board, and the incumbent in CD4, she's a great Republican, Deb Scheffel, has told me she's not running again. So this is an open seat, and that's why I can jump in.
How long are the terms, and how many terms can you run for?
So 6-year terms, and you can run for 2 of them. So it's actually one of the longest terms in any office in Colorado. I'm actually not even aware of any other office that's more than 4 years.
So if you were to be successful here and get reelected and serve out the full term, you would leave office somewhere in your 30s.
If only. 40s is more like it, but I'd be getting up there. Not quite catching you, I don't think, at that point, but maybe close.
That's good. Oh, I about nodded off just off the reference to the age. Is anybody else on the Republican side, have you heard jumping into the race? Have you heard rumors about it? Maybe someone's already in there.
So no one as of now. And I think, you never know what other people's plans are and what they might do. But as of now, I'm the only Republican candidate in the race. If
it's CD4, if it's the composition of CD4, we know it's an R+27 district. So you win the nomination, you win the seat. Did the Dems have someone that they have already announced as running for that seat?
To be honest with you, I have not even looked if the Dems are running anyone, because to your point, in CD4, the real race is the Republican primary, if there is one. And I think one of the things on the State Board of Education, it's a volunteer position. So it's not necessarily a super popular seat that everyone wants to go run for. Certainly if anyone else does, that's great for them. I'm happy to run, whether it's a primary or not a primary. I'm really passionate about getting on the board, being a voice for parents, and then also fighting hard for school choice. I just think that's something that we're on the edge of losing in Colorado if we don't actively fight for it.
We're talking with Kristi Burton Brown, former party chair, now candidate for the 4th Congressional District seat on the State Board of Education. What are the superpowers that the state board has that can actually be used to enhance what we already have for school choice options?
Yeah, superpowers is a great word. I think a lot of politicians wish they had superpowers they don't actually have. But I think one of the most important things the state board has a say over is charter schools that districts refuse to approve. They can appeal to the State Board of Education. And we've seen the State Board of Education deny some of those appeals, specifically, actually, for good classical charter schools, because some of the members on that board are opposed to anything they think even touches like religion or conservative views that they're not a fan of. So I think, that's a big problem on the board, is they like to deny charter schools that they don't personally like. Obviously, it's not what should happen. You should be listening to the parents in the district who are asking for schools like this and wanting them. So I'm not under the illusion that when we're in the minority on the board, we can just because I'm on the board, we're going to go approve them all. That's not what I'm saying. But I think we need really strong, active voices on that board exposing what the liberal majority is doing to parents across the state who are asking for more school choice options.
Where do you see that line then in the public funding of schools, school choice, and the religion piece? I mean, I imagine this would be if there was a Democrat and if they were viable enough to warrant some sort of a debate, this would be an issue that would come up. Where is that line for you? And you're an attorney, by the way.
Sure.
People may not remember that you made the same mistake I did, and that was to go to law school, and now you're stuck with it.
I know. You can never shake it off once you get in that line.
Well, that's it.
Let's see, George. Excuse me. I think basically the problem that's going on with the board is they're accusing charter schools of being religious that are not in fact religious. And so it was Hillsdale has a network of charter schools. There was one that they attempted to start in Durango that the liberal members of the board were like, well, because it's associated with Hillsdale and Hillsdale's known for having religious activities, the charter school must be religious. And there's a lot of testimony by good attorneys and other experts saying, no, this is a charter school, and because it is being funded by public dollars, it's not in fact religious. And the board just didn't believe it. So that's actually the problem, is they're accusing schools and people who want to start them of trying to push religion on kids with public funding when that's not even what they're doing, and they won't believe the evidence. So that's a pretty big problem.
What else do you see going on out there? Does the school board have the ability to impact funding at all? Any other policies outside of the school choice thing? I mean, we love the fact that we have local control of education, curriculum. What else can the school board do?
Yes, they do have influence over some funding abilities and some academic standards as well. Like there was a review of like social studies standards that they did. And I know the conservatives on the board right now were actually able to get that in a better spot than it otherwise would have been. So yes, making sure that you help set good academic standards at the state level. Of course, Colorado is a local control state, so school districts still have a lot of say over that. And yet you have this overarching board of education that can speak into those standards and have influence on the academic standards. And of course, in my view, when we have 40% of kids in Colorado, that's all that can read and do math at grade level. Giant problem, because we have a lot of people on the left focusing on a woke agenda instead of the basics, reading, writing, and math. And so a return to real academic standards, I think, is a push that the board can influence, although they don't have the only say or the final say over it, can certainly influence that. And then right now, I know the Board of Education is considering taking away funding, actually, for some programs that homeschool families participate in that are allowed to be publicly funded in Colorado. But the board right now is considering getting rid of it. I know Stephen Varela and I'm sure Deb Sheffel and Steve as well are all involved at trying to stop that. But that's another thing. You have to expose what they're doing, that they're trying to choose between types of education and saying, you choose an alternate education for your kids, you no longer deserve the funding the state grants you and allows you to apply for. And that's why I say a lot of elements of school choice are under attack right now.
We're talking with Kristi Burton Brown, former state party chair, current candidate, brand new candidate for the State Board of Education. A 6-3 split sucks. I mean, is there any hope in any of these other districts that we can close the gap? We're obviously going to hang on to the spot you're running for, but is there any other place we might pick something up, or are they always going to be handcuffed to the congressional races?
That's a great question. I think, we always have a shot in CD8, or I shouldn't say always, but at least right now we do. It's a new congressional district. We did see last year when Barb Kirkmeyer just barely lost that congressional seat. It was because there was a third person running in that race, a libertarian who took some of the Republican votes. And the reason I say we know that is because in the CU Regent seat, the Republican actually won when it was the only race that was a head-to-head between a Republican and a Democrat. Board of Education seat also had a three-way split, and therefore the Democrat won. So if in CD8 we could get it down to a head-to-head Democrat versus Republican, there's definitely a shot at winning back CD8, and there is a really great candidate running in that seat. I'm actually going to talk to her today.
And for sure, she's already in.
She is already in, yeah. She's a Hispanic mom with a really, really great story in that district, and hopefully we can get her elected as well.
Now, I didn't tell you I was going to do this. I'm going to ask to convert you over based on your expertise and experience in your position as state party chair to just help us understand a couple things. One, in the state of Arizona, hold on. In the state of Arizona, did you see or hear this recorded conversation between Senate candidate Kari Lake and the state party chair down there, Jeff DeWit?
I did. I listened to it this morning.
Do you know that guy? Had you ever run into him?
Thankfully, no. I was chairman when Kelly Ward was the chairman in Arizona. Oh, yeah. He got elected around the same time Dave Williams did. But they can maybe go be buddies, but not me.
Any thoughts on that when you heard that?
I mean, it's what you would hear in a movie, right? Like, this would be some made up, here's a bribe from people back east in dark rooms trying to get someone out of a Senate race and offering, I mean, I don't know, I was never clear on the amount in his phone call, but what, millions of dollars to not run for Senate because she's not willing to scratch backs of people in DC. I mean, literally the stuff of movies, but it's real life and deeply, deeply disturbing.
Have you ever been asked to do anything like that? Was there ever a moment that somebody, these moneyed, deep-pocketed, mysterious people from the East, which is how he described them, reached out to you and said, "Get Ron Hanks out"?
No, definitely not. And George, that's what's funny is people love to say that everyone operates like this. Everyone is the chairman. Therefore, you're listening to all these behind-the-scenes donors who are telling you what to do step by step. And and no, it's actually very rare. Never once happened to me, and I know the majority of chairmen that I knew never happened to them either. So this is actually a fairly unique situation, but it's what everyone talks about happening in politics. Here's a prime illustration of it actually happening. Or, I mean, maybe some people have the theory that he made it all up to try and get her out of the race, and I wouldn't know which is true because I don't know him.
Well, that would be tough, right? Like if he talked her into it, she's like, "Yeah, I'm on board," and then he's like, "I don't really have a job. I don't really have." I mean,
right,
I just
no.
That it's also it's weird to me, and I'm sorry I didn't pick up on this. Kelly asked about it in the 6 o'clock hour, but she hung on to that recording, or didn't come forward with it for like 10 months, and now is like, "Got to get rid of this guy. He's corrupt. We can't." It's like, well, you've known about that conversation since March. Why did you wait till now? Is there any? If you could speculate for me, what are the tactics behind that? Why wouldn't you come forward?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that is an interesting question. I think a lot of times, timing can be everything, as you know, in politics.
Oh, yeah.
And so my assumption is that her and her team have obviously known about this recording for a long time, but sometimes you can say, hey, we could put it out here now, but nothing's going to happen, maybe because of the current news cycle or where you are or something like that. And obviously, if you're going to reveal that someone is involved in attempted bribes and threats, you want to make sure it sticks and that it's going to be the right timing to actually get rid of them and get them out of a position. Or, who knows, maybe she thinks it's good for her. I really don't know more than that, but I certainly assume her team has a really good reason for doing it now.
We've had Dave Williams on the radio, much like we had you on and Priscilla Ron on, and I love those conversations. Dave's always willing to have them. The ongoing issue with the running for CD5 while being state party chair, and again, I know it's tough for you now because you're a candidate, but I want to ask you this. If you had thought, I would love to run for the school board at the state level, and you were the state party chair, could you have done both? Would you have done both?
No, not unless there was no primary. I think that's the only situation in which you can do it. That's how Ken Buck did it when he was congressman and chairman. And in fact, George, I don't know if I told you this directly, but when I was vice chair and he was chairman, he actually talked to me and said, if I have a primary, I'm going to need to take a leave of absence as chairman, and I'm going to need you to step into that temporarily as vice chairman until the primary is over. And obviously he didn't have a primary, no one challenged him, and so he was able to stay as chair. But I think that's the right ethical way to do it.
Yeah,
I think
that's an interesting one,
to,
Kristi, because we had heard from Dave that, hey, they used Ken Buck as an example. Well, hey, it was right for Ken to do it. I did not realize you guys had a contingency plan in place.
Yes, we did. And it was all based on whether or not he had a primary, because I think the bylaws and Article 3 of the Colorado State Republican bylaws are very, very clear that your job is to support and not oppose Republicans who are running. So I'm sorry, is Dave not supporting himself when he's running for Congress? Like, come on. If you're running, obviously you're supporting yourself. I'm supporting myself for Board of Education. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. Of course you are if you're running. And so there's obviously a big primary in CD5. It's very unethical, and I would say against the bylaws for a chairman to participate in a primary personally and remain chairman. And I know a lot of county chairmen and members of the Central Committee feel the same way because they've reached out to me and reached out to others. I'm really worried about how this makes the party look.
What is your sense, too, of the vote that was just taken in advance of Iowa by the state party to endorse Donald Trump for president? And I'm going to acknowledge this. Dude's going to win the primary, short of a Red Sea splitting moment. The guy's going to be the nominee. Should it matter that the party weighed in or not?
Well, sure. And I'd even say, like, short of Trump, dying, he's going to be the nominee, and in my view, the next president. And so, I think a lot of people on the Central Committee most likely saw that as an inevitable conclusion. Like, he's going to be the president. Why don't we jump on board early rather than later? However, again, I talked to a number of people in the Central Committee who just aren't comfortable with taking a stand that state parties aren't supposed to take. It's not because we're not willing to acknowledge the inevitable. It's not because people on the Central Committee don't fully support President Trump, but it's just saying it's not the role of the party to take sides. And I think particularly in Colorado, a reason that some people had a problem with it is because the state party charged other candidates to like tens of thousands of dollars to appear on a primary ballot. And then they're not even willing to remain neutral when they've taken something from candidates and are unwilling to refund it to them. I think people had problems with that too. And so it's just, how far can you go to cross all these ethical lines that damage the reputation of the party and are supposed to be seen as a neutral arbiter of primary elections for Republicans, whether they're most likely to win or lose? Then that's just how I see it.
One last question from that part of your experience that is the state party chair. And I know you've done a million things more than that, but this one's about that. There's this issue going on right now in the Republican caucus in the General Assembly about whether or not they're going to vote no confidence against Representative Mike Lynch, who I'm sure you know who Mike is. He's the minority leader. And there was this issue with the DUI and the delayed disclosure, and the disclosure being, preceded by someone else kind of bringing this information forth and all that stuff. The part I wanted to ask you about was there's photographs and discussion, and I think it was Marianne Goodland from the Gazette that did this, that Dave had shown up to this meeting or this caucus meeting ostensibly to carry the vote and is leaning in and having conversations and all that stuff. Could be entirely innocuous, but I guess what I'm wondering is, from the viewpoint of someone who's been the state party chair, what would your role be in such a thing?
I tend to think, and I don't know what Dave was doing there or not, but I know some of his friends are still in the legislature. I assume it's, difficult for him because he was a legislator and served with multiple people who are currently in the caucus. I'm sure he talks with them and attempts to give them strategy advice and all those kind of things. I tend to think the role of the state chairman is not to draw attention to yourself. Obviously, you should be speaking to the media. Obviously, you should be answering questions to represent the party as a whole. But when there are controversies that rise up within the party, you should absolutely be helping behind the scenes. And you should be, offering advice, offering help, trying to talk to people, helping them figure out the right things to do. But, and I'm not directly talking about Dave here. I mean, I assume he didn't ask to put himself in a photograph. But I'm saying in general, if possible, to be involved behind the scenes and let the focus be on the people who it should be on. I tend to think that's the best way to approach it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think too, and you maybe without even meaning to, you've highlighted for me another issue with being both a candidate and state party chair at the same time. And state party chair should want to work behind the scenes to do X, Y, and Z to keep things looking good and moving forward. Candidate wants as much press as possible, right? Like, I mean, you want as much name ID and ink and all that other stuff. Those things seem to, based on your description, be at odds. And it would be another reason to say, hey, how are you doing the job of the GOP chair as best you can with your full faculties when your attention is also on how am I going to get myself elected into Congress?
Sure. And I think, George, you make a good point. Not only is your time divided in getting elected in a Republican primary and yet trying to help the entire party across the state and other candidates who believe me, are calling you all the time, asking for help and advice and what you can do for them, which is exactly what they should be doing. But yeah, I mean, reputation wise, and when you're a candidate, you're going to obviously analyze the emails you're sending out to a greater degree. And I think the problem is it's really rare for a person to be able to say, this messaging is going to help the party as a whole, or this messaging is going to help me personally in my race, because my name's at the bottom of this email. Like, most people are going to tend to choose something that helps them in their race, and that's just not a conflict of interest that is good for a state party chairman who's supposed to help everyone should have.
I think that is probably the unforced error of that email he sent out. I completely understand him notifying the distribution list that he had chosen to run for office and he was going to stay on. I think he had to make that disclosure, but attaching his campaign's public announcement complete with website and everything, that was just like, dude, you didn't need to do that, but that looks clearly self-serving from a candidate standpoint.
Sure, unless you're going to offer that to every other candidate.
True.
And here's the thing, not only in CD5, but across the state. You have to have, the job as chairman, you have to apply an equal standard to candidates. If you say, hey, as a state party chairman, we send out every new candidate's press release. Or if you have a standard, hey, if you've raised at least X amount of dollars, we'll go ahead and send out your press release. And you can have standards like that, but they have to be standards across the board that apply to all candidates. And I think it's so crucial to understand the role of the job that you have. If you want to do something, you've got to fit that role and be responsible to do it.
We're talking with Kristi Burton Brown, candidate for CD4, representative to the State Board of Education. If folks wanted to know more about your candidacy or even help you out, what's the best website for that, if you have one up?
So my website, I do. It's kbbforcolorado.com.
Kristi, thank you, man. I know you got to get back and probably do some of that homeschooling yourself. So thanks for taking time out of class. I hope nobody missed math.
No, not yet.
Okay. Take care. That's Kristi Burton Brown. If you have thoughts on that, I'd love to have the calls at 303-696-1971. Some of the texts I'll read when we come back, reflective of this. I'm anxious to get back into, this discussion that we've been having. There's also the New Hampshire primary that I want to get your feedback on. We've got some sound from that. And then this idea of the primary itself, it's on trial right now in a federal courtroom. Yesterday, the GOP made its arguments to knock unaffiliated voters off the list to get ballots for the primary, keep them from voting. We'll talk about that as well. Before I cut away for a break, though, I want to tell you about my dentist. It's Drs. Richter and Snyder at Twin Aspen Dental Center. They're the bomb. I told you that a friend of the show had texted in a picture of him waiting for Shiloh, who's the same hygienist that I use. It's not even up to me, but that they stick with me every time I go in there at about Stroh Road and Parker Road. Very easy to get to from any direction. These are just great folks, and they do all of the big things that you need done. They've got all the special high-tech stuff to find out whether your jaw and the bones in your mouth are supportive of this kind of implant or that. They do the bridges, the crowns, but they also do that bread and butter stuff, that 2 times a year daily cleaning, and they do it in a way where you don't feel apprehensive, you don't feel anxious, you come out feeling like these people care about you, like you're part of the community, because guess what? You are part of their community. And you can find out a whole bunch about them by going to twinaspendentalcenter.com. You might even be able to schedule an appointment there. But I like talking to the people themselves. 303-841-7466, 303-841-7466. Don't wait. It's twinaspendentalcenter.com. When we come back, more texts. Your calls at 303-696-1971. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Is there a number at which
I can be bought. That's what it's about.
you could take a pause for a couple of years?
No.
They go right back.
No. 10 million, 20 million, 30, no. A billion, no. This is not about money. This is about our country. I think it's disturbing that they would that anybody would think this is.
I'm not, to be fair, even me, I'll say this. I want a fresh face right now for the reason that I've never seen anyone. I can't think of a single person in a federal race who lost ran into the law. I can't think of it. You can think of it.
I'm not going to let these people who hate our country tell me not to run. You should call them and tell them to get behind me. So what's going on? What is? I'm assuming this is our friend.
Oh, this is back east. There are very powerful people that want to keep you out.
I don't know when they do.
But they're willing to put their money where their mouth is in a big way. So, conversation never aired.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. That is Jeff DeWitt, state party chair for the Republicans in Arizona, having a conversation with Kari Lake from way back in March of 2023. That recording just got released. Somebody texted in and said, well, maybe Kari didn't release it or someone else released it. The point is she knew about the conversation 10 months ago and appears to have done nothing about it. Now that it's out, has demanded that Jeff DeWitt step down. That's weird. I mean, one of the questions I'd asked is why the late disclosure? We've got callers on the line to have that conversation. But before I get to them, I do want to tell you about Dan Caplis. I wonder if Dan, I don't think Dan, Dan is one of those guys that is so well known, so well respected in and out of the courtroom for the obvious reasons, right? I mean, the guy, probably the best known plaintiff's attorney in the state of Colorado, maybe the region, because he gets justice for his clients. When other people would cut and run, they'd take a handful of dollars, stick them in the person's hand and run up. Dan doesn't do that. Dan's in it for the long fight. And so he's developed this reputation as someone who stands up for principle and for values and as a fighter. And I know that Dan has considered running for office many times. I've had conversations with Dan years ago about whether he'd run for office. I wonder if he has ever been approached by someone to not get in a race, because I tell you, if that had happened, not only would Dan laugh at them, but Dan would immediately have gone to the media to announce, hey, I just want to let everybody know somebody just tried to buy. I mean, that's the kind of principle you get with Dan. Dan does the right thing. And if that's what you're looking for in an attorney, someone that's not just in it to make money, because Dan doesn't need your money. Dan's got plenty of his own. Dan wants to help you get justice. That's why when you hear him talk about it, they're looking for righteous cases. And if you've got one, give them a call, 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or you can check them out at dancapluslaw.com. Caplis has a C in it, dancapluslaw.com. Alexa, you're on 710 KNUS. What do you think?
George.
Hello.
So, hello, how are you?
Yeah, good. How are you doing?
Good. So, my first thought, if I was Kari Lake, after that conversation, even if I was recording it, would be, are they trying to set me up to see if I'll take a bribe and then release that?
Yep, that's interesting.
And I think the timing, I think she probably had a zillion things go through her head right after that. But I think if she had released it, the mainstream media, the story would be Kari Lake can't be trusted, she'll record you. She's not a trustworthy person to have in this race. They would have spun it and not paid attention to the bribe or any of the other details on that tape. Or she maybe thought it could have been a test on her. So I can understand why she didn't release it then. I also think, they talked about,
hang on, Alexa. If that's true, but why not then April or May or June? Why now?
I'm guessing, I can't confirm it, but I don't see that she released it. I don't know.
But she certainly knew about it, right? Like she knew about it. She knew the recording existed. She participated in the conversation. It just feels weird.
Right. But it also is, they had stated on there that if Jeff said that if people found out he had this conversation, the people back east would have him killed. I mean, I think that might have played into it too. Why she didn't?
Don't you think that was a little hyperbole? I mean, don't you? He wasn't actually talking in terms of. I mean, that feels like a conversation you have in someone's ear, not across the table from them.
How many people do the Clintons know that have died by suicide or suspicious circumstances?
Please tell me you're not going to blame them for Ron Brown.
I'm not going to make a statement on that one, but
but you think that was serious? You think he was worried about being killed? And so, is it what you're suggesting? And you had texted this in that she was trying to save his life?
That she didn't want to put him in that position if she didn't have to. I think she saw her audio as an insurance policy. I mean, how many people? James O'Keefe, McAfee, John McAfee. So many people on Twitter, the internet say, I'm not suicidal. That means that they fear for their life. And she said on that tape, you know, the only way she's not running is if they kill her. And she didn't act very surprised that they would do that. I think it's very plausible.
Is this one of those things, and I know she's not in an elected position like Lynch, but where we have these expectations that people who we entrust or we're going to entrust with a certain degree of authority and responsibility come forward with the things they know that would make a difference. So, for instance, with Lynch, I think maybe the thing that makes this thing the story that it is less the DUI, which is its own damning criminal event. I get that. Then it is the fact that he hung on to it through his reelection and then his election as a leader of that minority party. That's the part where people are like, dude, this is similar to me unless there's a good explanation for it. And I know you're trying to find one for her, but she knows about this thing. She has now come out, now that that thing's been leaked, and said, this guy can't be in charge. He's corrupt. Well, my guess is she's held on to that belief for 10 months. Doesn't it kind of mitigate against it? Or doesn't it make you question her motives and saying, why didn't you come forward with this in some way? Why didn't she go to him even off the record with her people and say something like, dude, I have a recording of you trying to buy me off of this race. Step down, go away. Why not do that? Why this way?
You really need to watch Blacklist. It will
with James Spader.
It will explain. Yes. Oh God, it's such a great show. Too bad it's over. I think if he found out that there was a recording, he might have offed himself. I don't know.
What?
Because you'd rather kill yourself than be tortured by, the cabal, wouldn't you?
No, but Alexa, doesn't it feel like we're going just a bit off the deep end with the speculating of what could happen? Like they're going to disappear him to somewhere in Gitmo, the special politician side of the island, something like that?
I wish there was that, but no, I think she probably felt very set up and felt releasing that tape could have been, if she releases it, then it's going to be negative against her instead of this is a corruption issue. But I want to align this with something else. What's really interesting is, two things. Kelly was saying how he looked at the Arizona stations and none of them are running this story, which is shocking. But let's talk about Adam Frisch. Remember how he set up that Aspen council guy and bribed him, and he waited to reveal that until enough time had passed for the statute of limitations, right?
Yeah.
The mainstream media didn't go after him for doing something wrong. They promoted him, as does Denver Post. He should be the congressperson, not Lauren Boebert. She can do nothing right in their eyes. So, I mean, you look at how the media spun that entire Adam Frisch situation. And again, not that he was cheating on his wife and doing the hanky-panky in the storage facility, which is beyond so weird. They just was Boebert bad, Frisch good. That's all we care about, and that's what we're promoting. And I think that would have been the same thing with Kari Lake if she released it. Kari Lake's a horrible person for recording this conversation, you know.
But that's not the
or
case
she
now.
ne- or
But
she
people
needs-
don't, even though we think about
Right.
it, that it's not as big a deal now is what you're saying.
Not as big a deal. What? No.
Why wouldn't they spin the story
Oh.
the same way and say Kari Lake, horrible person, recorded the conversation?
Because if she's not the one that released it, they can't blame her.
But she's the one that recorded it.
She recorded it. Yes.
Yeah. But
But
isn't
she didn't
that the
release
thing?
the
It's not. I
recording.
mean, the recording piece tells you she's
Yes.
got something on her mind.
Right. Well, I mean, after my kid went to CSU and they gave the crazy talk about, you know, if you're hugging someone and the other person falls asleep, you got to stop snuggling with them because it's not consent. I told my kid, I'm like, I would wear a body cam 24/7. I mean, this is a crazy world. I mean, all the things that people get accused of. I think it was smart that she recorded it. I think she probably was very shocked at what she was being offered. But she did record it to protect. I'm guessing to protect herself. Not.
I wish she
as a
had gotten more
gotcha.
details, though. I wish she had said something like, "What exactly are we talking about here?" But I think the risk with that is then it sounds like she's interested or she's gettable.
Right.
I don't
Yes.
know, but
Yeah.
But I think it's a risk. Hey, Alexa, thanks for the great phone call and trying to twist my brain into thinking that this dude was going to be tortured to death and she was trying to save his life. Thank you for that.
Well, watch Blacklist, George.
Alexa's line is open 303-696-1971. We do have other callers on the line, and including Carly. I promise I'm going to get to you. I got to do something first. We'll cut away for a quick break, and then I'll give you the time that I have to have that conversation. What I need to do is to tell you that being a 710 listener, a George Show listener, isn't just awesome for the obvious reasons, of course. You get to listen to me whine on throughout the day, but you also have the ability to get smarter about the different issues that are out there. But get this, if you just tell a certain someone that you're a 710 listener, all of a sudden they start doing things for you with a huge deal. That guy's Mitch Flory with the Art of Granite. You tell him you're a 710 listener, and this craftsman, this great businessman with the countertops in your house, you get the kind of deal you just can't get somewhere else. Now, he gives you the wholesale prices anyway. That's just by being a good member of the community. But he throws in the bathroom countertop for free with the kitchen countertop package if you say you listen to the George Show. That's all it takes to get that deal. If you're only doing one room, maybe it's the laundry room, the kitchen, the bathroom, it doesn't matter, the finished basement. It's okay. He'll throw in the sink for free. He wants to give you something extra for listening to the show that he listens to as well. Call him at 303-386-5919. Unmatched craftsmanship. That's not me talking. That's the people I know who listen to the show have said, "Oh, we use Mitch even before you read for him." And I'm like, I wish it had been after, but I get it. 303-386-5919. I'd go to his place at Colfax and 6, but you can also find huge selection online at theartofgranite.com. That's theartofgranite.com. Carly, everybody else at 303-696-1970. We'll get to you in just a moment. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Going right back to the phone lines. Carly from Highlands Ranch in beautiful Douglas County. You're on 710. What do you think, Carly?
What I think is that you're blaming the victim, for lack of a better word, than what was said to her.
What do you mean by that? I'm blaming the victim. What does that
What do you mean? What do I mean? Well, I mean, just because she didn't release this on your certain timeline, what about what was said to her? Because if I had to guess where this was coming from, it was coming from Mitch McConnell, because he does not want to see her in the Senate, and he holds all the purse strings.
Yeah, Carly,
That's what I think.
Not that you don't have another life, but did you listen to the 6 o'clock hour?
No.
Okay. During the 6 o'clock hour is when I had the in-depth conversation. We played all the sound and talked about the deep state and Washington, D.C. and people's thoughts on that and whether or not this might have even been correct. So we did all that stuff. And one of the questions that was generated from that was from Kelly behind the glass. And Kelly said, why do you think it was that she waited until now to release it? That generated the conversation that you're calling up to criticize me about right now.
Well, George, I can't listen to 3 hours every day. So if I owe you an apology, I apologize.
You don't owe me an apology. You don't owe me an apology.
But I'm just saying, it sounds like you're just blaming Kari because she didn't come out in a certain timeline. And I'm just saying that was really dangerous conversation that she recorded. And it would take a long time to figure out what you wanted to do with it.
Yeah, I don't agree with that part, Carly. I mean, look, she is a tough, strong, smart person who has shown herself to have a certain, following in Arizona that might actually put her in the United States Senate. She wants to be a senator. She wants to be a truth talker.
And I hope she wins.
Yeah, well, and she might. She very well might. But this conversation happens about 10 months ago. It's the kind of thing, when it's released, she says rises to the level of calling for the resignation of DeWit because he's corrupt. And it's like, well, you've known he was corrupt for 10 months, and yet you let him continue to operate in that position without blaming the victim. Carly, isn't that a question mark for you as to her judgment? Like, what would keep you from revealing this corruption to everybody else so we could get him the hell out of there earlier?
I can think of a lot of reasons. And this is yet again another reason why I stopped giving money to the GOP.
But tell me what those reasons are.
Tell me what the reasons are. Like I said, that conversation was very dangerous when you consider all of the people that could have been behind this. I mean, it just is.
But
and before you take action, and besides which, everybody knows that Kari Lake records everything, and good for her.
Well, apparently DeWit took it for granted. But I'd say this, Carly, I can't think of all the good reasons. Like, if it's a dangerous conversation, the best thing to do is to expose it to as many human beings as possible to ward off the effects
Come on, George.
of that.
Come on. You're an attorney, aren't you? Didn't you used to be the AG or something here in Colorado? No, it's
never.
Not that easy. And you and I both know that. So just,
it
just seems like you were trying to blame her. And I'm going by what was coming out of the recording.
I'm questioning her. Listen, what DeWit did may have been a crime. I don't support that, but I'm questioning why it ended up this way. And so far, I haven't heard any real good answers for it. But Carly, I love that you listen, even if it's not the 6 o'clock hour. And thank you for calling in. Always appreciate the conversation. Carly's line is open 303-696-1971. We're going to talk about the New Hampshire primary when we come back. Kelly, how much time we got? 30 seconds. Listen, something happened in New Hampshire. It wasn't a surprise, but maybe the reaction to it by the two folks involved and what should happen next might be. Love to get your thoughts. Stick around. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here. Final hour of the 4-hour show. At 10 o'clock, we turn it over to the big national guys, Charlie Kirk, then Dennis Prager, Seb Gorka, Brandon Tatum. That gets you all the way to 7 p.m. Great national talking. I imagine they're going to also cover what happened last night as well. I will too. And of course, we'll be back with you 6 to 10 a.m. every Monday through Friday. New Hampshire, first primary in the country, took place yesterday. Everyone expected a Donald Trump victory, and sure enough, he won. He got the victory that everyone thought. But in a mano a mano, I guess, kind of a race, he didn't run away with it with the same margin of victory he did back in 2016. And in 2016, if you'll recall, there were a bunch of people in New Hampshire, 6 of them at least. Trump, Kasich, Cruz, guy named Jeb Bush, low energy Jeb, Marco Rubio with the hands, and Chris Christie. And the way it turned out in 2016, the last time he had to deal with a truly contested New Hampshire primary, was he got 35% of the vote. John Kasich came in second with 15%. That's a 20-point margin in a 6-person race. That's amazing. That's an amazing gap in a 6-person race. Now, in a 2-person race, he ended up yesterday winning and handily. I don't want to leave the impression that it wasn't anything other than a decisive victory, but he ended up with, I think it was 53% of the vote to Nikki Haley's 43-ish% of the vote. Now, at the end of this, even though it was a 10-point win, and that's decisive, all right? That is decisive, no question about it. There's a lot of these exit polls that are out there, and they all suggest certain groups that one did better than the other then. I found it interesting that once again, Nikki Haley seems to do better with those Republicans and voters who have a college education or higher, and Donald Trump dominates those who have less than a college degree, but he's made inroads, considerable inroads with the educated class. That says something. At the end of that primary, as you can imagine, each of these candidates made statements about the way forward for them and what they think is going to happen. Kelly, can you fire up DJT first?
Whoa! Well, I want to thank everybody. This is a fantastic state. This is a great, great state. You know, we won New Hampshire 3 times now. Three. We win it every time. We win the primary. We win the generals. We've won it, and it's a very, very special place to me. It's very important. If you remember, in 2016, we came here and we needed that win, and we won by 21 points, and it was great. And today, I have to tell you, it was very interesting because I said, wow, what a great victory. But then somebody ran up to the stage all dressed up nicely when it was at 7. But now I just walked up and it's at 14. But she ran up when it was 7. And, you know, we have to do what's good for our party. And she was up and I said, wow, she's doing like a speech like she won. She didn't win, she lost. And you know, last week we had a little bit of a problem. And if you remember, Ron was very upset because she ran up and she pretended she won Iowa. And I looked around, I said, didn't she come in 3rd? Yeah, she came in 3rd. And then I looked at the polls. She was talking about most winnability, who's going to win. And I had one put up. I don't know if you see it, but I have one put up. We've won almost every single poll in the last 3 months against crooked Joe Biden, almost every poll. And she doesn't win those polls. And she doesn't win those. This is not your typical victory speech, but let's not have somebody take a victory when she had a very bad night. She had a very bad night. And you have the now very unpopular governor of this state. This guy, he's got to be on something. I've never seen anybody with energy. He's like hopscotch. And, you know, I'm watching this guy, and 2 weeks ago, I said, we're going to win. We're going to win in the landslide. We're going to win. About 3 days ago, I started saying, well, we want to do well. That's a big difference. But I walked out just now, we're 14 points up, and I don't know what it's going to be. But when she was up here, it was like 6 or 7. And, you know, with like 7% of the vote counted.
That was Donald Trump last night after the race was called for him, and I can completely get why it would be. He ended up winning, I'm looking at the results here, 54.4% to 43.3%. That's the last number I see. That's an 11-point win, a decisive victory. He's wrong, by the way. It wasn't a 20-point win, 21-point win in 2016. It was under 20 points in 16. Still decisive, but why the inaccuracy, I don't know. But he says she had a very bad night. I don't know if it was a very bad night. I think it had the potential to be a very good night, and it wasn't. And I think now if you're a Haley funder, you're looking around the map wondering, where's that next victory? Or is there one? Because she's not going to be on the ballot in Nevada. That's coming up early February. So that means she's not going to get any of those votes. In her home state of South Carolina, I saw this breakdown of endorsements. She has one endorsement from one member of Congress in South Carolina. All the rest of the Republican elected officials at the statewide level, it looks like, in Congress seem to have come out in favor of Trump. The polling suggests Trump's going to win and win handily. You know, Tim Scott came out and endorsed against Nikki. The lieutenant governor did. And again, here's why I asked this question. When you have that kind of support, who is the establishment candidate? You know what I mean? When everyone in the establishment is coming out and endorsing you, does that change your view of the person they're endorsing? Or is the establishment endorsing the non-establishment, anti-establishment guy? I don't know. But I think the Haley campaign is likely reassessing right now what the future looks like and their long-term plans. But you wouldn't know that from listening to Nikki Haley. This is her yesterday after the election.
What a great night. God is so good all the time. Thank you, New Hampshire, for the love, the kindness, the support, and a great night here tonight. Thank you so much. I want to first say thank you to my husband, who I know is watching right now. I love you. We're excited to have you. Thank you. I want to thank my kids who are here, Rita and Naylan and Josh, who have really kind of stepped up and just given me the support I need. You know, you really pull on your family when something like this happens, and I am incredibly blessed by their support. I have my parents at home, and I will always say that the way they raised me, to know that we lived in the best country in the world, but to also know that the best way you appreciate your blessings is to give back. Thank you, Mom and Dad. I love you so much. To my siblings, to my in-laws, to everybody back at home, to Vicki for helping me take care of Mom and Dad. Thank you for that. You know, I will tell you, it feels like it's been a lifetime, but it has been almost a year that we've been campaigning in New Hampshire, touching every hand, answering every question, being the last person to leave. And we had the most amazing thing happen is the second that we got the endorsement from Governor Chris Sununu. I mean, a true governor that doesn't stand behind a podium. He shows up at a diner. He shows up at the brewery. He loves the people of New Hampshire. He has been with me every single day at every single event. Chris, I couldn't have done it without you. And I want to thank someone who was with me on day one. He's a patriot. He's a hardcore conservative. And he is my friend, General Don Bolduc. And Sharon, thank you so, so much.
That's Nikki Haley yesterday, sounding an optimistic tone. Big shout out to Chris Sununu, who is a Republican governor. That's because he came out, of course, and endorsed Nikki Haley. Now he's the very unpopular guy that's on some sort of drugs or something because of all of his extra energy. I guess this is the opposite of low energy Jeb. This is meth energy Chris or something like that. But that's just where we're at, I guess, here in American politics with this guy. Nonetheless, I think it's a foregone conclusion that unless something significant changes, he is going to be the nominee. And that thing that has to change, and someone called in and said this, like if he passed away, that would be it. I think that's true. I think the only other thing I worry about, not for the primary for him, but for us in the general, are the exit polls that show that if he's convicted in any of those cases against him, that it would undercut support to the point where Joe Biden wins. Now, the problem that creates is obvious, right? It now puts an incredible amount of pressure on Joe Biden to put an incredible amount of pressure on DOJ and Jack Smith to hurry these things along, thus further politicizing the criminal justice system. But it's real, folks. And it's real enough that if this guy wins the nomination, and I think he will, he gets convicted, we get Joe Biden for another year and Kamala Harris for the next 3. I mean, what? That's the America that we're going to sign up for? Don't have to worry about that with DeSantis, who's out, or frankly, Chris Christie or Tim Scott or Nikki Haley. Didn't have to worry about that with any of them. But with this guy, you do. And I wonder if that is enough for you to want to hang on to some other option, even if she or he is not your first option, that we hang on to them and keep it going. Listen, we've got Jacqueline on the line, but before I get to her, can I do this? I want to tell you about QC Kinetics. These are the good folks that have figured out a way to solve your chronic pain issue. Not with pills, not with invasive surgery, but with you. They solve the chronic pain by using you to fix you. Now, if you want to know more about the regenerative medicine stuff, you can do any kind of research at all. Look up regenerative medicine, find all of it. Don't just rely on QC Kinetics, but once you've done that research, go to the QCkinetics.com website, see how they talk about it, see if it jives with your other research, and it will, and then call them and ask them to answer all the hard questions. Right? Ask them anything you can think of. They're local medical professionals that answer this call at this number, 303-900-8986, 303-900-8986. These folks will answer all the questions. If it's not to your satisfaction, okay, move on. But if it is, you now have an option that you didn't have before. Instead of grinning and bearing it, instead of taking pain pills, instead of the rehabilitation associated and downtime associated with surgery, you now have an option of walking in and walking out same day kind of treatment. I got friends that are going through this right now. They're thrilled. QCkinetics.com. That's QCkinetics.com. Checking on something I just got texted by a listener, because you guys are great, that Mike Lynch has stepped down. I'm going to try to follow up on that. In the meantime, we're going to get Jacqueline. Jacqueline, you're on 710. What do you think?
Oh, good morning, George. I watched that last night on Rumble, and I'll tell you something. They intervened with Rachel Madcow. They had a reporter on the street that was interviewing young college students, and primarily they were all male, white males. But anyway, they went down. This is ballot harvesting is what they did. They went down and they admitted it on the interview, and they had been that way all day long yesterday. They went down, changed their ballots, and voted for a Republican. They voted for Nikki Haley. And when they were asked multiple times.
What party were they before, Jacqueline? Were they Dems before?
They were Democrats. They're registered Democrats. They were organized to go down and vote and to change their vote to Republican so they could vote for Nikki Haley. They were asked by this reporter why. Because a vote for Nikki Haley is a vote against Donald Trump. Well, they don't like Trump's stance on global warming. Now, this is a college student who talks out the wrong end. But Nikki Haley, if she thinks she won that, she's got the Democrats to thank for that, because I'm going to tell you what, she lost big, and Trump's numbers would have been through the ceiling. They would have. And for her to stay
how many Democrats do you speculate change votes? Because here's why I say that. We didn't talk about this before, Jacqueline, but you know that Joe Biden, despite not even being on the ballot, won the New Hampshire primary pretty handily as a write-in candidate. So it's not like the Democrats had votes to throw away here.
They said they estimated over 1,000. They interviewed yesterday all young college students, and primarily they were white males, which I thought was quite interesting. We have to do something to save our men in this country, but that's another subject. But my point is here, Nikki Haley now is running on estrogen, and what she needs to do is quit and go home, because she's got no chance. She is out there for, I don't know, fame and glory, fame and power, whatever it is. But the woman, to me, it's embarrassing for her to keep in like this. And she knows she's not going to win. Why would she stay? Why would she stay? I just don't understand it. She's not going to win. And if she thinks she's making a name for herself, well, she is. But she doesn't look good to me. And I feel all this in my cells, by the way. It's that woman's intuition. I never liked her from the beginning, and now I'm right about her. I mean, she's a glory seeker. So she can say in history, I ran against Donald Trump.
Couple questions about that, Jacqueline. When you saw this story on the ballot harvesting thing these guys had owned up to, what was the nature of it? Like, what were they doing to harvest ballots?
Because they were recruiting college students, and they wanted to lower Donald Trump's numbers. Is what they wanted to do, because a vote for Nikki Haley is a vote against Donald Trump, and it lowered his numbers.
I get that part, but what were they doing? What was their active ballot harvesting? Just recruiting people to vote?
Just recruiting people to vote, and they started at college campuses, and they figured at least over 1,000 changed their vote from Democrats. And they said they would never vote for Donald Trump. They're going to vote for Joe Biden, but
Nikki
against
lost
Trump.
by over 34,000 votes. So I don't know if that made much of a difference at all in the numbers that she had. And had she had 1,000 less, maybe it affects it by a percentage point. So, I mean, I'm intrigued by Democrats wanting to do that in the primary, but I don't think it was a game changer.
Well, no, it wasn't a game changer, but it did lower Trump's percentage, and it would have been a lot higher, I do believe. But I did watch that, and I found it quite interesting, because Rachel Madcow was just thrilled to death. I mean, I cannot stand this woman at all, and I don't know why they put her on there, but anyway. And as far as
she gets
Arizona,
good ratings for them. That's why they do it. She gets really great ratings for them. In fact, she has beaten Fox News a few times with her show.
Disgusting. But anyway, as far as Kari Lake in Arizona, I think she was smart to hold that back, George. I do. I think she was smart to do it. Because I do think that maybe that's a little bit of an insurance policy. And if I was her, I'd have done the same thing. The same thing.
I feel like, Jacqueline, you'd have come forward and said, hey, everybody, I just need you to know. And I haven't even gotten in the race yet. And I can't remember if she had. But I just need you to know, man, the deep state, they're out there trying to keep me from running, and I can't be bought. I think that's what you would have done.
Well, I don't know. I tell you what, I play poker a lot, and you've got to have a good poker face. I'm telling you, in politics, it's a dirty business, but that might have been her insurance card. I do think. And if you're worried about your safety and your health, I think maybe now we're in a country now that, assassinating somebody or taking somebody out or whatever it takes. I think the Democrats are just devastated. I think they're desperate, and I think we got to watch our backs, and I believe it.
Jacqueline, can I ask you too, you talked about, hey, what purpose does she serve in continuing to run? And who knows, maybe she, like DeSantis, has eyes on 2028 if this doesn't work out, and she's just going to be the last person standing. But what about this notion that she, to some extent, represents an insurance policy in case something happens with Trump, whether it's medical or, I don't know what it is. Okay. But let's say something. What about the idea that she's running as that insurance policy? Does that change your mind at all?
It might a small bit, but not really, because I don't think that the American people are ready for Nikki Haley. And I'll tell you why, because she's running on estrogen. It's one thing to talk and sling mud and talk real tough. But when it comes right down to it, I'll tell you something. I wouldn't vote for her. I wouldn't, because I think she's just all show and legs. And I'll tell you something else. If I was going to go into a fight, I'd want Joe from Arvada on my side, because I'm telling you, that guy I love him. He's right on.
Joe is a great listener, and I love the energy he brings to it. But Jacqueline, Joe is a human hand grenade, and he's willing to pull his own pin. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's why you go to battle with this guy, because he's a bit like a berserker. You just point him in the right direction and cut him loose.
I know. That's what I say. I'll tell you, I want him on my side. But, I did watch that, and I wasn't surprised at the ballot harvesting and what I was surprised at, it seemed to be all white young men. And
that's interesting.
That's a whole other show.
Very
but yes.
I'm not sure it's the traditional definition of ballot harvesting, but I do get what you're saying. Like, for me, I view ballot harvesting as dudes or dudettes going around to places like retirement communities or low-income housing or high-income housing. It kind of doesn't matter. Going door to door and just saying, hey, we'll take your ballot to the ballot drop-off box for you. And, if you haven't voted yet, we'd love to talk you through the things you can do to make our community. Like, I see that more as ballot harvesting than just simply recruiting people to go out and vote.
Well, they did, and they changed their vote. They requested a Republican ballot. They were changing their status from Democrat to Republican. And it was on a MSN PMS station, and it had been that kind of an interview all day yesterday. He said that's what he was hearing from one after the other all day long. Young college students.
You make me laugh. Not a lot of people can do that. So thank you for that. Thanks for listening, especially all the way out there in Big Red Country. Jacqueline's line is going to be open here at 303-696-1971. Before we get to the other calls, the other texts that have been coming in, I want to tell you about Roll 'em Out Shelves. Now, it's not really about Roll 'em Out Shelves. That's the company. And you can find them at rollemoutshelves.com. But it's really about the people that are the company. Brent and Joyce Tolliver, that's a son, that's a mom, and they've been doing this business for many years now. And what they've decided to do is, we're not going to do something like get subcontractors, keep our overhead low, they're not doing that. They have long-term employees that they send out job to job. One, it just increases the quality, but it also increases the accountability. There's no one to turn to. If something needs to be fixed, they go out and fix it themselves. They come to your house when you call them to say, how can you make my cabinet space more efficient? Doesn't matter what room it is, laundry room, kitchen. That's the big one, is the kitchen. Bathrooms. They were in my bathrooms, and Brent and Joyce, if you're listening, I apologize for the crime scene nature of some of those bathrooms, but thank you for grinning and bear it. They didn't even need to get into mop gear to do it. Brent gets on his hands and knees, gets back in the crevices there, looks at all the places, and then they come up with a plan. They shoot you the plan, and they say, talk to us about what you need. You don't have to do the whole thing. Do the parts that you like. Go to their website, rollemoutshelves.com. They got videos on the installation. They've got different things that you can consider for your place. You will love your house even more. It's like a facelift from the inside. Book your free in-home estimate today. Call them at 303-475-9601, 303-475-9601, or go to rollemoutshelves.com. That's rollemoutshelves.com. When we come back, let's continue the conversation. Your calls at 303-696-1971, your texts, and I will read to you the statement from House Minority Mike Lynch stepping down from his leadership position at the end of business today. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. I promised you I would do this, and then we're going to get to the callers that we have on the line. Let me check this right here. Mary, we're going to get to you, I promise. Dave also. But let me do this. I told you that we just received breaking news that House Minority Leader Mike Lynch has made the decision to step down. This is exactly what he says in this statement. Today, I share my decision to step down as minority leader today. I guess 2 days or twice in there. I don't know who quality controlled that. At the close of business. It is with a heavy heart that I make this decision, but I firmly believe that our caucus is stronger when we stand and fight together for the people of Colorado. I'm immensely proud of the many accomplishments we've won for Colorado together. We've tirelessly championed the values and principles that make our great state exceptional. Through our unwavering dedication, we have successfully advanced policies that promote economic growth, protect individual liberties, and ensure a brighter future for all Coloradans. As I step aside from the role of minority leader, I do so with optimism and a deep sense of gratitude for the trust and support you have shown me throughout my tenure. I have full confidence in the abilities and commitment of our caucus members to carry on the important work we have started. I look forward to working with the new leadership to collaborate and forge a path forward that will lead to a better, safer, and stronger Colorado. Together, we will continue to fight for the principles and values that define us as Republicans and fulfill our duty to the people we serve. Thank you for your relentless dedication and support. It has been an honor to serve as minority leader, and I remain committed to the shared vision we have for our great state. That is current House Minority Leader Mike Lynch, who's just going to go back to being a representative member of the caucus, still one of the 19. No indication that he's stepping down from that or that he suspended his campaign. Nothing like any of those things has taken place. I said we would get to the phone lines, and I want to do that right now. Mary from Wyoming, you're on 710 KNUS. What do you think, Mary?
Hey, good morning. Remember the other candidates, they only suspended their campaign. They didn't close them. They could get back in.
Yeah,
and then
yes, but they won't. But they wouldn't have any delegates. I suppose it could be a brokered convention or something like that if it ended up happening. But it would be more challenging, I think, for them than for an existing candidate who's gone through the assembly and caucus process. What do you think of that?
True, but I do think that, like I said, there is that option. So I'm not concerned that Trump would not, be on our primary. And also regarding the lake,
yes, ma'am.
I was going to comment on that.
Yeah, please.
And that is, I think that the timing, if it had been posted before and talked about before, it's over. It doesn't have it. This way, it has legs, and it's during a critical time of when the voting would be. I think for maybe that reason, on that happened.
That's interesting. I just don't know why the timing is better now than when it immediately happened.
Okay. And then I wanted to bring up something real quick.
I'm asking.
Go ahead and say.
Why is the timing so much better?
Because right now, I mean, it's very, how do I say, very current. In other words, with what's going on. And in the past, if it was, happened not as current it is right now, I think that it would not have the impact. It would be, oh, that did happen to her, but that's all over.
If that's true, is there something to be said for now saying, hey, I think this dude needs to step down as state party chair because he's corrupt, when she's known about the corruption and let it basically continued unabated for 10 months?
It's not as a matter of I want to say the state party chair, as much as it is about her getting mileage out of this. I think that it's more
That's
now.
more important than the corruption
to
piece.
Voting. Yes, I think it is.
Mary, I appreciate the position that you've taken. What else? Go. And I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
Real quick question. You had that housing person on before, and she was great. And
Yes.
Remember how you were talking about how immigrants do not pay taxes? Please search immigrants and income tax. They said the articles are 50 to 75% of undocumented immigrants pay income tax and also housing costs.
Well,
so maybe
my
you could
comment
revisit
was
as a
they're not
topic
paying,
maybe again.
They're not paying property taxes because they don't own property. That was the conversation we were having.
There are programs that, yes, they do own. That was a big issue, especially in 2008 in the programs. And also, there's a scam that's going on right now with them on the income tax. They're allowed to claim illegals to up to 10 children without providing Social Security numbers on the thing, where you can't. But that is going on right now, and both the mother and the father are claiming it. That's the scam that is happening right now. I hope you can revisit that.
Mary, I appreciate the phone call. Thank you for listening way up there in windy Wyoming. Stay warm. Mary's line is open at 303-696-1971. Dave from Sterling, you're on 710. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I got to tell you something. In midterms, I got 2 ballots in the mail.
Hold on. This is Jay from Sterling, not Dave.
Yeah, Jay.
Yeah, okay. And by the way, Geronimo is behind the glass. I think he must have just misheard your name, so forgive me. Jay from Sterling. Thanks, man.
Yeah, so I got 2 ballots in the mail on midterm.
Did you vote them differently, or what'd you do with them?
No. I ain't I'm a straightforward man, but you don't do that. But it was weird, and that was midterms. I got 2 ballots, exactly the same, addressed. All my relatives are like, "That's crazy." So when you talk
that's crazy, and it should never happen. But I also think, had you signed them and filled them out and sent them in, my guess is one of them would have been rejected, and they might have even reached out to you on the other one. I don't know. Did you vote both of them?
No, I'm not like that. No, I just mailed one of them in, but I had to show all my family members and friends. I'm like, this is crazy, but that was midterms. I wasn't for this deal going on.
Yeah, I also agree with you that this carpet bombing of mail-in ballots, I don't think is healthy. And while the vote counters seem to believe that they have this largely foolproof plan to make sure that there's no fraud, I'm skeptical. I would much rather see Jay from Sterling have to register with the Secretary of State's office to get the mail-in ballot, like we did with absentee ballots. Remember that? I would much rather see that than us just say, hey, we found 8 billion people on the voter rolls. Let's just drop ballots on all of them and see what happens. I don't like that.
I agree. I got to tell you one other thing that I learned about 15 years ago. Which
this
is
isn't going to be
insane.
this isn't going to be like a sexual health thing or something, is it? I don't want to.
I love you guys. No, so there was a gas station owner in Colorado here, and is up in the mid-range, and he was from overseas. He was a Palestinian or whatever, or Iranian, and he owned a gas station up there in the Front Range of Colorado. And I got to be I had a trucking company, so I was always buying all my fuel from him and da-da-da. Anyways, I got to talking with the owner one day, and he's like, yeah, he goes, I'm going to sell the place. He goes, I'll still be around. And da-da-da. He goes, so I learned this, which is, you want to talk about crookedness, is therefore, he goes, I'm going to sell it to my daughter because I've already had it for 7 years. So if you buy a business
Yeah.
He goes, it doesn't. He goes, I'm going to buy a hotel now. He goes, but my daughter's going to come over and run a gas station. I'm going to sell it to her because they're tax exempt. Our government has got it set up to where if you're from another country, you can buy a business and run it tax free for 7 years.
Well, that doesn't seem fair or right. That can't be. I wish I was a tax guy. That doesn't sound right.
No, it is. Our government gives them somebody that comes over here. That's why a lot of these hotel owners, they do this. The guy told me this has been 10 years ago. And the guy said, he's like, yeah, so I'm going to sell it to her. So she'll be tax free for 7 years. And then I'm going to go. And then he said somebody else is going to come and they were going to buy a hotel.
Did they? Did they do that? Have you ever kept up with these guys? They sound like they're cajillionaires.
I did for like 3 years, 4 years, I mean, I was in the oil field business and farming. So I'm a farmer and got into the oil field, and trucking and all that other stuff. So, but
Jay, did you think to yourself, I need a mail order bride so I can capitalize?
No,
on that?
you know what? Don't think that didn't cross my mind. I mean, I got a trucking company, I mean, I'm thinking, geez, but yeah, I mean, but I ain't that way, I'm married, so I mean, anyways, but it makes you wonder if our government they're giving more incentives. My point is that it's no longer than the illegals coming across. They're probably giving them free food stamps, free hotels. They're giving them
so much stuff, so much stuff.
So that's my point. But this has been going on for a long time. But these guys were buying up gas stations, hotels, tax-free for 7 years.
Jay, I need somebody who's smart on the tax stuff to let me know why it works that way. And maybe I'll have somebody calling. I just don't. I don't know. But that sounds bonkers and yet plausible. You know what I mean? Like people listening are like, I can't believe we're doing that. And yet I can believe that we're doing that because, government. Jay, thanks, man. I appreciate the call.
You don't bullshit us and I ain't.
Oh, well, there's that. See, that's the thing. Jay is just a regular dude who works the fields and the farms and all that stuff out there. And he talks like I talk off the radio sometimes. And we just got to be super careful of the FCC stuff right there. But Jay, thanks for the input. Our number 303-696-1971. I promise I'm going to get to Jay from Castle Rock as well. Maybe Geronimo, you can fuse them, Jay and Dave. Is it Dave from Castle Rock and Jay? We'll get to the Castle Rock thing as soon as we get that squared away. Let me do this though. Let me talk to you about your hair. Now, if you're a guy and you've got a full head of hair, no matter how gray it is, like Big Daddy right here, this isn't for you. This is for the rest of you out there who are like my brother, like my dad, although my dad's at that age where he stopped caring a long time ago. If you're interested in getting back that youthful look and all of the other fringe benefits that come with it, like that sense of confidence, that feeling of youth that you have, why don't you give our friend Dr. Tanya Pauls at Advanced Hair Restoration a call and talk through how they might be able to do that for you. They've completely redefined hair restoration. The experience is so low-key and relaxing in that calm environment. Experienced professionals, in fact, the most experienced professionals out there, they use your hair to grow your hair. That's brilliant. Next day, it starts growing. Here's the deal. Call them today for a free FREE consultation, and they'll throw in $250. They'll knock that off of the price, as well as 250 free hair grafts. Advancedhair.com, advancedhair.com, or you can call them at 720-459-HAIR, 720-459-HAIR. That's Advanced Hair Colorado, or Advanced Hair Restoration. Listen, we're going to do this. I'm going to get Jay from Castle Rock on to 710 here in just a moment. Let's cut away for a break. We'll come back. We'll have that conversation. I'll try to get through, my God, so many texts. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Say goodbye to clutter and hello to convenience when you experience organization transformation in your home. Roll 'em Out Shelves, your clutter transformation experts, create affordable Colorado-crafted organized storage solutions. These custom options will maximize and organize your kitchen and bath storage as Roll 'em Out Shelves carefully designs and builds roll-out drawers to fit your space perfectly. To clear the clutter, contact owners Joyce and Brent at Roll 'em Out Shelves to schedule your free in-home estimate today.
George Brauchler back with you here. 710 KNUS is the number. We've got Jay from Castle Rock on the line. Jay, what do you think?
Oh, thanks for covering these subjects this morning, George.
What's going on?
Lots of great things. I wanted to chat with you about Kari Lake and this
Tell me about it.
obvious bribe that she was offered.
Yep.
You know, I think that was channeled through the Democratic Party. I don't see why the Republican Party would want
Really?
to hold her back.
Why?
Yeah.
Why would the state party chair be down with that?
Well, maybe he didn't know where the real offering was coming from. There's several ways to channel, things and conversations, but the Republican Party would want to hold her back. They know she had, difficulties in the vote with going for governor, and now she's running for Senate. And there's lots of ways to hoodwink people. But boy, that's a big deal. I mean, that
Do you
watch all the
think
different.
that DeWit, the party chair, was hoodwinked, or do you think he's part
Well,
of whatever
he was probably
conspiracy
tricked.
this
No, I
is?
think he was tricked. No, I think they're friends, and it sounded like they were very well acquainted, and she respects him. But the offering could have come from like a mob tactic from the other side to keep her out of the Senate race, which I believe she would obviously win, from what I'm hearing.
Well, the polling has her neck and neck with the dude on the other side.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about
And-
the delay in reporting?
Well, I think she has every reason to be afraid. There's the Mark Riches of the world, and Hillary Clinton's attorney, and all those people are dead. Lots of people just end up coming up missing when they try to report things. So that's a big
Do
deal.
you think it was out of fear? Because fear didn't keep her from passing it along to someone who gave it to the Daily Mail, and fear didn't keep her from announcing right away, hey, I think the dude ought to resign because of the corruption. What do you think?
Possibly so, but there's been so many, attacks on individuals for coming forward. Look at the IRS agents that have come out just recently, and gone before Congress. Yet they were fired and they were demoted and shunned within the IRS and the FBI. Kind of scary stuff, gulag type Russian communist tactics.
I hope it's something not like that, because I don't like the idea that kind of fear would palsy someone as strong as Kari Lake, who is also vying to be 1% of the United States Senate. That I want her to be stronger and more courageous than that, just like she was on the audio, just like what she said on the audio.
Yeah, and she knew it was being recorded. She did a fine job
recorded
of
it, yeah.
interviewing him. But what are your thoughts? Why would the Republican Party want to hold her out from taking a Senate seat? That's a huge deal for us.
Well, I think it must be the deep-pocketed money folks out there in D.C. who see her neck and neck with the guy and thinks, man, if we could just, and this is back now, remember 10 months ago, and probably thinks if we could just run someone who isn't as tied to Trump, who isn't as MAGA, who isn't as out there, whatever their reasoning, I think they could guarantee a victory, whereas right now it's kind of a coin flip, and that's how it looks right now.
Yeah, I have a lot of family in Arizona, and it's a real, very conservative state, and there's some great people there. I do believe that she can make it.
She
and
might
I
be able
really
to.
do.
She almost pulled off that governor thing, but it didn't work out. Hey, Jay, do me a favor. Keep calling, keep listening. I just got to cut away and do a couple things here
Thanks.
before the end of the
Have a
show.
good day.
Jay, thanks for the phone call. Hey, before we get to Peggy apparently knows stuff about taxes. I want to get to Peggy because I asked for some tax specialists on this. I wanted to tell you about our friends that produce that high-quality supplement called Ultra Cur. It's a curcumin-based all-natural supplement, patented too because it's so special. And it's available for you for free, 3 days of it for free at your natural grocers. You just go and see the vitamin manager, ask for the sample, and you have to ask the vitamin manager for it. You get the sample, you try it out. And if you're like 50% of the people, you don't even need all 3 days to feel the positive experience. If you're like 50% of those people, you don't even need 3 hours, because in 2 hours they feel some health benefits. I've taken it. It definitely impacts the pain. Even when I run 3.5 miles now, way off that 18 I had done back in October, I still feel that pain. The Ultra Cur makes the pain less long-lasting. It's an anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, pro-health kind of a thing. Check it out. It doesn't cost you anything to try it out. You can check them out at getultranow.com, getultranow.com. But go to that natural grocers and get your free sample. Peggy, you're on 710 KNUS. Peggy, I'll give you what time I have.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi.
You just had two callers call in with some tax things. So
Yeah.
the first lady was talking about, I think, migrants or people without Social Security numbers not paying taxes. Is that right?
Say that part again. That's what they were saying about some foreigners being able to buy stuff and get 7 years of tax-free living or something.
Oh, okay. So for the E2 visa, that's the other person that called in. So in the tax law, the E2 visa is like an investor visa for certain countries that the United States has tax treaties with. So they have to come from those countries. And they have to bring in to the United States a substantial amount of money to buy or run a business. And it's to stimulate the local economy and put U.S. citizens to work. So they get to come to the United States and do those things because they're bringing in money and helping our community.
Yeah, so they do get that 7-year break?
So it depends on the country. Each country has a different tax treaty rule. So kind of would have to know which one it is. It's like an ongoing process,
Peggy,
and they have to stay eligible.
Forgive me, Peggy. I talked us out of time. I didn't realize we only have 10 seconds left in the show. But thank you for listening. Thanks for calling in. Hey, thanks to everybody that was on the show. KBB, you guys made it great. We'll be back tomorrow. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.